the July 1st, 2024 City Council meeting. If we would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call the roll.
Councilmember Richardson?
Present.
Beach? Here. Ray?
Here.
Belby?
Here.
Sones? Present. Armstrong?
Here.
Mayor Harrison?
Present. Moving on to item 4, I have the privilege of swearing in tonight Fire Captain Ted Neller and EMS Captain Aaron, I'm gonna say your name wrong because I always say it wrong. Is it Patnay? Pat. Thanks. All right, I was way off. So I'll have you both come up here and we will do at the same time. I got it now. It's exactly how it looks. So, no, I appreciate that. It's exactly how it looks. Well,
We're backing away simply because if they want to take photos.
I'll have you both come forward. We'd have her seal in the back.
Stephanie, they're different positions.
Never mind. Step side, Aaron. Step side. Yeah, we wanted to, because they're different positions.
I'm moving this down.
Okay, I will have you raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Ted Neller,
I, Ted Neller,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and
and
the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and that I will faithfully
faithfully
and impartially,
and impartially,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge all the duties
discharge all the duties
of a fire captain,
of a fire captain
the city of Indianola, Iowa,
of the city of Indianola, Iowa,
as now or hereafter required by law.
as now or hereafter required by law.
Congratulations. Now we have EMS Captain Aaron Payette, exactly as it is. All right, I'll have you raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Aaron Payette,
I, Aaron Pitt,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa.
and that I will faithfully and impartially,
I will faithfully and impartially,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge all the duties
discharge all the duties
of an EMS
of
captain
an EMS captain
of the city of Indianola, Iowa,
of the city of Indianola, Iowa,
as now or hereafter required by law.
as now or hereafter required by law.
Oh, boy. Your family can come up and we'll take some pictures and you do get these nice little certificates. You want to take one with me, give them to them?
Yep.
Here, I'll hold
You guys just both.
There you go.
How about that?
Yes. Both your certificates.
There we go. I don't need to hold them.
3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1.
Wonderful. And if your families want to come up.
Families, yeah. Any photos? I can take photos with your phones as well, that way you have it on your
With
devices.
me.
Do it. I'm not doing it.
I'm gonna give them. They're visually.
I think he wants to take.
Oh, yeah.
He's got to take it for us.
Go ahead, bring your families up. Come on, all you.
You guys are family.
Be shy.
A lot of family here.
Makes more sense for you.
Things up there.
You have a group.
Okay.
But it is a family.
Put yours up on the short.
Just in front, come on. When I did your phone, if you wanna go back, to go to the photo. Perfect. All right, everyone look right here. 3, 2, 1. One more time. 3, 2, 1. Stay right there. I'm gonna get my camera. That guy. That guy. All right, 3, 2, 1. Perfect.
Awesome, appreciate you. Thank you.
Barry.
Come on, Aaron.
Ted, you can sign, there's a pen right here if you want to sign it. Aaron will probably take a picture of you.
Aaron doesn't want.
Okay.
Right.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll come back.
I can't.
Aaron, you'll have to at least come up for your signature. I need a picture.
And then I'll give it back to you.
Okay.
Maybe.
Thank you, gentlemen. Congratulations. Great. We will now move on to the next item, which is public comment. I have a few forms here, so I will, just the way that they're stacked for me, I will have you come up and state your name and your address. You'll come to the lectern and you'll have 3 minutes. There will be a timer that you'll be able to see. And start with Jay Clark. We'll just ask for your address and
Yeah, that's, my wife and I live in Clyde. Our business address is up behind Jimmy John's and we have a new lot built that we're gonna build on down on West Second Avenue, 203 West Second Avenue. First of all, I'd like to commend you all for doing the Pledge of Allegiance. I haven't seen or heard that for way, way too long, so I commend you on that. But with that being said, my wife and I own a business here in town that she runs. I'm completely out of the business except for the logistics side of it. She runs a small mental health and substance abuse clinic here in town that serves obviously the community, but also serves the district. Indianola School District is the primary provider for this school district as well as the Warren County Jail System. She has been here for 7 years in business and has done really well and has had a lot of support by the community. But we have been renting for 7 years and have decided it was time to build, and we looked long and hard at buildings to rehab, didn't find anything that made sense. And subsequently bought the lot on Second Avenue and have been running into a lot of expensive roadblocks ever since. As a small business that he runs, mental health is not the most, we're not a CPA or an attorney. 40% of her clients are medicated. And the lot, although made sense cost-wise, since then the roadblocks time-wise as well as money-wise have been almost prohibitive to continue to think about building. So there's a lot of new codes that you guys have passed in the last 3, 4, 5 years that I've noticed, one, aren't being followed by the bulk of the businesses down there because they're being grandfathered in. I understand that process, but I don't find any new buildings being built on West Second Avenue at all, or East Second Avenue for that matter. I see a lot of open lots. I see a lot of buildings that haven't been rehabbed that are sitting empty. We looked at several of those. But these new codes are making it cost prohibitive, along with obviously the advanced cost of building anything in general right now, which is not any of your fault or the city of Indianola's fault. But right now, when I met with one of your city planners a week and a half ago, I expressed my concerns about the fact that the second we build this building and get our certificate of occupancy, that the price of the building will go down in value like a new car when you drive off the lot. I'm gonna cite a couple of my neighbors, and this is based off of the assessed rate, but our nearest 3 neighbors, one of which is your building, the IMU building, currently is assessed at $124 a square foot. The ISU building is at $72 a square foot, and my nearest neighbor to the east is $30 a square foot. Our bill's gonna come in, partially because of some of these new codes, between $225 and $250 a square foot for a basic building with vinyl windows that we've downgraded to, carpet, no tile, nothing fancy, almost $100 a square foot more than your building. Part of that is the landscaping. I'll use this as an example. The city planners are asking us to put in 40 trees and shrubs into our lot, in addition to the privacy fence that butts up against our 2 residential neighbors. As I look across the street, 20 yards away from my building, my lot is the IMU building that has how many bushes and shrubs on it? Anybody know? 0. You were asking me to put in almost $10,000, a full-blown nursery into our lot, in addition to the privacy fence. I can go on, but I'm gonna run out of time, so I'm asking you to put some consideration into looking at and inviting new businesses to build in the community that aren't Medicap or Unity Health or Mercy. Right now, it's cost prohibitive, so we're stuck with the decision, do we now sell the lot move to a Carlisle? Do we just continue to rent into perpetuity and spend money that we could be putting into our business? We've got a lot of decisions to make, but right now it's cost prohibitive for us to build. It really truly is. Again, not all these new codes, a lot of that's the economy as well. Between the dumpster enclosure, which not a single business on 92 has. It's gonna cost $10,000 to build a dumpster enclosure to match the side of the building that we have to build. The landscaping, the fence, the DOT requiring certain lengths of distance between, street to our entryway. There's a lot of things here that are gonna make this impossible for us to do, or very impossible to do. On top of that fact, we've been working with the city and the city planners for almost 5 months now. We're $20,000 into our site plan. That's 10% of our estimate, or 5% of our estimated bill cost. Just to get the site plan done. So I'm asking you to think about reassessing some of the codes that have been passed in the last 3 or 4 years, because nobody's building on Second Avenue. Out by the high school, there's 20 lots out there that have been sitting empty for over a year. They sold on them, half of them. They're not being built on. So I don't know how you guys think about that, or how you feel about that. I know you want to raise the tax basis of our city. I appreciate that. I know you want to build pretty and safe buildings. I appreciate that as well. We weren't going to build a dump. We weren't going to build a building that wasn't safe. But do we really need a dumpster enclosure for a business that doesn't serve food? Our office in Des Moines, we use a residential trash can that gets picked up every 2 weeks, not even every week. I'm being asked to build a $10,000 or $15,000 dumpster enclosure.
Thank you, Mr. Clark.
Okay.
I will follow up with you. If you
Okay.
could, if I pass this around to Jackie, if you could give me an email or a phone number.
Absolutely, I
and I
will.
will give you a call tomorrow.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. And again, the flag, I really appreciate that. I used to be a teacher and I appreciate that more than you can possibly understand, but I haven't heard it for way too long. Thank you for your time.
Next person up is Timothy Patterson.
Okay, this is gonna be a little bit more simple because it's one broad-based issue and it has to do with basically has to do with everyday living, like the subject is actually traffic safety, but it's twofold, because the first point is this is just a follow-up of a parole. McNeil, I'll just be unmasked here, the first one is a follow-up of a proposal that I made, but I was not present at the meeting to find out whether or not it was heard or ratified or anything like that. That has to do with traffic lights at intersections, that if there is any foreseeable plans of installing some type of electronic camera to ensure that if people, when the yellow light changes and if they're supposed to stop, because that's what you're supposed to do. And if you go through the light when it's already red, if the camera nabs somebody, because I know in Des Moines, they have that all the time. And I personally got a ticket, not by a camera, but by an actual police officer when I was much younger. So I learned the hard way. So that's the first part of the question about traffic safety. If the city plans in the foreseeable future to implement, some electronic device at given intersections, just to make sure that if someone, when the light changes yellow and it starts to turn red, that you just stop and slow down, let the pedestrians cross and everything. You don't just speed through even after it's red and cause a possible collision. So that's the first point of my question. The other is much more broad-based, because this normally, I believe, would be done on a state level. But when I tried to when I had written to the governor and, there was no answer from her staff or anything like that. So this has to do with, let's see if I can remember now, if I can remember. It has to do with, my goodness, that's why I came here, and I'm just I'm having a moment here.
You wrote down on your form, local driver's ed in public schools.
Okay, yes, thank you very much. I needed that, yes. I know this is not done on a state level, but what can be done or what proposal can be made if driver education for young people like 15, 16 years of age, would they ever go back to teaching young drivers the public school method? That's the way I learned almost 60 years ago when I was in school. We would just either go after high school, our regular classes, or we would do it on a summer vacation, but we would always go to a public school. There would be a driver's range. There would be instructors there. There would be actual textbooks. There would be actually films and all that stuff. And then we would drive on the driving range, thankfully. Oh, 2 minutes, okay. But anyway, that's my question about implementing possible going back to public driver education, which I know was done on a state level, but things start small. So I just thought I would approach that locally. Maybe someone can help me to approach the right people on a state level. So that's it.
Thank you, Timothy. I think that would be an excellent topic that you could talk to the school board about. You know, and I think I have your information here too, so I'd be happy to send you the school board's information on who to contact. Because I think that would be the most appropriate place to start with that.
Wait, after the meeting or are you gonna
You know
contact
what?
me?
I'll just pass this around, and if you put a phone number on, I'll give you a call tomorrow with the appropriate school board contacts, if that's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have Joe Moody with your next.
Well, as a Texan would say, howdy. And I'm sure you all have been inundated with this chicken issue. And what I've tried to do here tonight is to hand you out a thing that I'm sure you have heard every issue that I've written, but to talk about it pragmatically rather than emotionally. And you all are kind of our Supreme Court in the city of Indianola. You make decisions, and your decisions hopefully are made on for the good of the community rather than issues that come in through people's comments. Because sometimes people get emotional about things, and what we want to do is look at it pragmatically as an issue that is good for the community of Indianola over the long haul. So let's look at the positives and the negatives, please. We look at one thing I've heard so much about, chicken eggs. Okay, and I understand that people want to have fresh eggs. That's a positive, and we'll count it as a positive. I think you can go to Somerset, we can go to a lot of places and still buy chicken eggs that are fresh, probably cheaper than you can if you raise the chickens and do all the cleaning and do all the stuff for the chickens. That's just that. Yes, for children, you can train a chicken, I think, but I think it takes a lot of training to train a chicken. And I've never known a chicken that can use a box in the house like a dog or a cat can. And we have puppies and we have kittens in the town. But if you want a pet for your chicken, for your child, okay, get a chicken. Teach agriculture. That's an issue that probably is okay. I think you can train a dog, train a cat, train a chicken, probably teaches agriculture too. The negatives, the noise, I admit no roosters, there's gonna be noise. When chickens lay eggs, they cackle. I would too if I was trying to lay an egg. That would happen, sorry, never laid one, but anyway. Appearance bothers me in a city after a while. Keeping those coops. I was raised on a farm in East Texas and we had chickens and it was tough. I was the maintainer of the chicken coop and it stunk and I had to clean it. That's an issue that I think is over the long haul is something you need to consider. Appearance of the property next door, somebody's got chickens and you don't like them and so forth. So everybody here, we all want freedom, but when you're a community, you need to look at your neighbor and consider the neighbor also, not just what's free for you, I don't think. The disease, I looked up and this is from a medical source. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Skunks, you can see them. You can read what's on there. You've heard it before. I don't want to go over my 3 minutes. Thank you very much and good luck. And we trust in our Supreme Court to make the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have another meeting. Bye.
All right, next up is Barb Moody.
I had no idea.
He
there
just
was-
left you then, huh?
I had no idea he was gonna say anything, so I hope I'm not repeating. I am gonna read what I've written down because I know timing is an issue and I don't want to ramble. I am aware that the survey, this is about the chicken issue, has been extended by the Planning and Zoning Commission for a few weeks since many people did not know about the survey. But I also think this issue needs more study, so those taking the survey would understand the repercussions rather than just listing which ordinances they agree with. Kirsten Haas, the city planning intern, presented the survey to Planning and Zoning last Tuesday, along with a list of proposed ordinances. She made it a point that 15 other towns have similar ordinances. I don't understand how this is relevant without checking to see how long those towns have allowed chickens. I only know Carlisle 3 months. We also should have been informed about how that has worked out for them. How many chickens are housed inside their city limits? How many permits have been filed? How are they enforcing the codes? All that information should have been available before you voted yes or no. I have emailed most of you about my concerns, and my hope is that you have listened to those who spoke at the Planning and Zoning. I questioned why so few people spoke in favor of the ordinance, only 2 families, when 700 responded favorably. When I mentioned this to Mr. Armstrong, I said, quote, "Several people at that meeting spoke against it." His response was, quote, "That is an overstatement." In another email he
Stand
sent.
by that.
On another email, I have the emails. On another email he sent that subject, he wrote, quote, "I did not count Rita since her main complaint was about not knowing about the survey," unquote. If he had actually listened to her, her very real concern was her health. And she explained to the board that she has an incurable disease, sarcoidosis, which affects her lungs and would be exacerbated by having chickens nearby. I would hope that the rest of you would take time to listen to the residents who have real concerns and judge whether those concerns are outweighed by those who would like to have chickens in their backyard. Many of us are also concerned about code enforcement. These are some of the regulations that are going to be in place. Permits required, banding chicken legs for identification, number of chickens based on the size of your yard, size of the coop, and mandatory coop inspections. I believe it was stated that 50% of those responded to the survey said they're interested in having chickens themselves. That would be hundreds. I fail to understand how this will not be another burden on the taxpayer. If the mayor and city council expect to pass a much-needed bond issue in the near future, the residents of Indianola need to be convinced that our tax dollars are spent wisely and that our limited resources be used for necessities already in place and not take on new ordinances and codes, at least until we have more information. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here this evening that would like to speak?
Mayor, if I may, it's not on the agenda, so I talked to our attorney here tonight. I'd like to make a comment under public comment if I can, since it's not on our agenda.
Sure.
The thing that I really want to talk about here tonight from a few moments is the fact that we have 127 days after today. I'm glad Barb brought that up about the bond issue for a public safety building, because she probably is one of the few in our community that understands and knows that that's coming up. My wife worked at the absentee ballot at the county auditor's office for about 14 or 15 days and was talking with some folks in the auditor's office, and they didn't even know that we were still looking at trying to put a bond issue on the ballot in November. Folks, we are gonna probably, and Ben, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but in about 45 days or so, we're gonna have to pass a resolution to put that on the ballot. Is that correct? Sometime in August?
August 5th, I believe.
Yeah. And so I went back and looked at all of our priorities that we, as a council, voted 6-0 on in January, I believe it was, or February, after we had our retreat to talk with staff and council about what our priorities were. Our number one priority was public safety. That was the council's number one priority. It was number one priority of staff. The library, now my wife told me that everybody knows that we're going to get a new library down the road, but we're not, nobody really knows that we're doing the bond issue for a public safety bill. So my point with all of this is that I think I would ask all of you to go back and take a look at the priorities that we voted on in earlier this year and what those priorities are. My wife, being the intelligent woman that she is, asked me, she said, well, if those are your priorities, but you're working on all these other things, and I'm not, please don't take anything that's here against any other item brought up by a council member or staff. But she said, don't you have to move that into that position rather than, and move something down and take something out of our priority list, because those have become your priorities. Those, not what you put on that list of 36 items, I think, if I'm not mistaken. And so my point tonight is this, is that we as a council passed a 6-0 resolution earlier this year to do those items on that list in an order to better this community. And we have 127 days to start looking and giving staff the time to work on those things to make sure that we get a bond issue passed. Probably right now in my reality, probably less than 1/10 of 1% realize we're doing that in our community. And so we've got a lot of work to do. We got to pass that by a 60% majority. So we have a lot of work to do, and staff has a lot of work to do. I would ask council, please think about what you asked staff to do and what priorities you're asking them to put on things. I am as guilty as every one of us. And I have to step back and I have to look at that, because that is our number one priority. It should be our number one priority for our fire department and our police department. And I would ask that we stop asking staff to do things that aren't toward those priorities on that list, specifically number 1 and number 2. And that's my comment, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, is there any other public comment? Moving on to item number 6 is the consent agenda. Is there any items that need to be pulled from the consent agenda?
Item F, please.
Okay, anything else? Seeing none, can we get a first and second motion on everything on the consent agenda with the exception of item F?
Second.
Thank you. Well, there's quite a bit on here, but appropriately such, so I'll let you go through.
Go as fast as I can. The public hearing and scheduled for July 29th for chickens. We have some liquor license renewals for Feed and Foster as well as for Counter Stop. Special event permit for Elks Lodge, payment application number 29 for Absolute Concrete for the square reconstruction project. First consideration on several development, subdivisions, parkland dedication, screen buffering requirements. Second consideration on a false fire alarm order. Resolution suspending enforcement for alcohol on the for the Indianola Summer Arts Festival. Resolution suspending enforcement during Rag Bri for alcohol. Waiver of sidewalk requirements, installation. This is with regard to some special consideration out on the South K Street property that would come in at a later date when development occurs. Purchase of streetlight poles, Wesco, and easement for the Buxton Avenue traffic signal project. Getting that easement in place. Resolution approving certain amendments to policies related to boards and commissions. A letter of support with regard to charging and fueling application for electronic charging stations. HR Green fiscal 25 general wastewater engineering services contract. Approving an amendment number 4 to the professional service agreement with regard to the downtown square project. Reimbursement this is a reimbursement resolution with regard to expenditures that were made for the relocation of City Hall into temporary accommodations that can be reimbursed out of the bond in the future, should that so pass. Filing a list of boards and commission members, utility write-offs and salaries. On the list.
All right, any questions?
Sorry, I realized that U was in consent agenda. U,
Oh, you. So you wanted to pull that,
can I
okay?
pull that? Too late.
I would have to look at our
I
attorney.
need to withdraw my second.
We would have, if you're gonna pull, then we'd have to go back and move to approve the consent agenda with.
The items
with
without you.
Hold on a second. You probably don't have to reread. But we would need to pull, first you'd have to take a no vote or like. Just,
Is it something we can have a conversation about here, or is it something that you need to recuse yourself from?
I need to recuse myself from that.
Okay. Cause you're on there,
Hometown Pride is on there.
but does she need to recuse herself because she's not on there anymore on the website?
Okay, then let it go.
So. No, okay,
Okay,
all right.
so we're staying with what we have, right?
Yes, we're staying, thank you.
my apologies.
Okay, perfect. Jackie, sorry,
I'm sure we were good.
I got all off there, sorry.
My apologies.
No, you're okay.
Councilmember Rabe,
Aye.
Dalby,
Aye.
Stones,
Aye.
Armstrong,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Beach.
Aye.
All right, we are circling back, F, correct? Item F, can I get a first and second motion on a third consideration and adoption of an ordinance requiring various amendments to the chapter 165 zoning regulations?
Second.
All right, and Christina, I know we discussed this,
Yep, I just
Okay.
have one question. So in section 1, where it says such amendment shall not become effective except by the favorable vote of at least 3/4 of all members of the council regarding a change that is disapproved by zoning commission, is that something that's required by the state? It is not.
No, not that one in particular.
are you still concerned with the 3/4 of it?
I am.
The 3/4 is 4.5, when you have 6 voting members.
You need 5 council members on that.
So it would have to be, okay, so it goes up. We just wanted to be really clear, so there's interpretation that we're clear with it. So 5.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's kind of been the way it's been, no, we've had,
You're putting me on the spot there. I don't know if our code previously did that, but it's been that way since we adopted this new zoning code back in July of 21. So it's been that way for a few years, at least.
I remember you used to have super majority in some of those things to override some.
Yeah, I could go back and look.
Don't
at
worry,
it.
no, please do not. My conversation.
okay. Jackie,
Councilmember Beach,
Nay.
Rabe,
Aye.
Dalby.
Aye.
Stones.
Nay.
Armstrong,
Nay.
Richardson.
Aye.
right, moving on to item number 7, under council reports, I need a first and second motion to receive and file the May 2024 EMS billing activity report.
Just a moment, Mayor, then by doing that, a tie vote, am I correct on that? We had 3-3, is that correct?
Yeah, so there
It's a
was
policy, I
like
would-
20 some sections in there. And if the intention, from my standpoint, if the intention was just to defeat that one item, I guess I would suggest that we take that one section out and still pass the other 20 whatever sections that are in there, because there is a lot of amendments that were being made by this, so
Is the concern the 5?
Yeah, since it's not a state requirement that we have
So-
super majority for anything not recommended.
Would
by
4 be
PNC.
appropriate then versus 5?
4 is normal.
4 is
Well,
normal.
yeah, I guess, okay.
Yeah.
How does this affect us since this is our third reading?
Yeah, so again, essentially what happened was that entire ordinance and all 19 sections of that ordinance, which there was 19 changes proposed to the zoning, this was just one of them. Voting no on this entire ordinance kills everything, all 19 sections in there.
What you can do is we can table section 1 You can vote to approve or disapprove sections 2 through 19, the changes to those. You would have to then, for section 1, if you want to drop down to 4 votes, we need to do 3 readings of that change. But if you're not going to change anything else for 2 through 19, you can vote to approve those in this 3rd reading. We would just have to we'd have to take out the amendments to section 1 and revise those and then do your 3 readings of section 1.
Okay, so then do I need to make a motion to
Reconsider probably.
reconsider
Yes.
That would be, okay, so
with the amendment of
section
section
2
1
through
being,
19.
section 1 being omitted and approving sections 2 through 19? That is my motion.
Okay. All right, is there a second to that motion, which would be approving sections 2 through 19? And tabling section 1 for now.
Okay, then I have a question on section 4, since that's how we're doing it. Charlie, I'd ask you today about section 4, and I just think it's vague, saying that detached garages, sheds, and above-ground pools are all lumped in this maximum count of 2.
We don't have a second on this, I don't believe, is that correct?
Right, so until we have a second, sorry, I didn't want to interrupt. Until we have the second, we can't have
Sorry.
discussion, sorry.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Now we can have discussion. So section 4.
And I got the first part of it, so yeah.
Yeah, my concern is the vagueness. We're putting a maximum of 2, the maximum of 2 is already there. But now we're saying that it's detached garages, sheds, and above-ground pools. An above-ground pool is what? Anything above ground
Yes,
is a pool.
yes.
And so any agricultural piece of property that has an accessory or a detached garage and a shed can't have an above-ground pool.
Yes, and so let me go back really quick. That's the way it reads today is that you can have a maximum of 2 total buildings, and then it says including garages, that's it. So if anything, I think we've expanded to make sure that people are aware that all of those things are also included as accessory buildings. So we're just adding more. We're trying to make it, I think, less vague by expanding on what exactly those accessory buildings are that we require, because those things have always been considered accessory buildings. We are just pointing them out in the code.
You know, just because it's in front of us now.
So I think,
guess-
so what you're saying is under accessory buildings, a definition of accessory buildings has always included those items, but now they're just being listed out rather than having to go to another subsection to find the definition of what an accessory building is.
And I don't know if the actual definition of accessory building calls those out, but our interpretation has always included those in there. So if you give me 1 second, I can find out what the definition says. So it's the first definition there, so this is really easy. Accessory use or structure is a use or structure on the same lot with the principal use or structure and serving a purpose customarily incidental and subordinate to the principal use or structure. It says accessory structures, it goes on to a lot of things. So that doesn't say, but again, what it says is that an accessory structure is something that is accessory to a principal use, meaning that typically with a house, you have a house and then those things become accessory to the house. So in our opinion, those types of structures have always been included in the accessory. We just make sure to call them out now in the code.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I guess just the above ground pool one throws me off.
If I may, have a comment, yep. Do you have other comments?
No.
Folks, this is, again, just exactly back to, and I wasn't discussing this item here, but it's exactly what my comment was in public comment here, because now we're gonna have to go back and staff is gonna have to resubmit for 3 readings, those items that we're talking about. We have this information in front of us before the first reading. Those are the times we should be asking those specific questions and getting that information so that by the time we are at the 3rd reading, unless there's a lot of public opinion against what we're trying to do, it's something that we should have done and taken care of ourselves. And so we are now going to go back here and ask by that 3-3 vote, we're gonna go back here and ask staff to spend more time on something that should have been done earlier and that is now taking time away from getting those folks a new fire department and a new police department. That's my point. So this is the kind of stuff that we should be dealing with at the very beginning of these kinds of discussions. I understand you have questions. You can do that during the 1st and 2nd reading. We're at the 3rd reading now, and we're to a point where you're gonna ask staff to go back. Are you gonna have to take it back to planning and zoning, Charlie?
I didn't know what the motion gets made. We're gonna need to do we're gonna need some guidance from the council on that. So yeah, potentially.
So this is my point. And I just think that these kinds of things, because we're not doing our homework ahead of time, is causing us to be in a position where we're requiring staff to do things that's taking away from the 127 days after today that we have a bond issue on the ballot. That's my point.
Okay, I'm gonna make a statement because I disagree.
Okay.
There are 3 readings for a reason. And I was not present when the first reading took place. And I do have issue with it. So there's been plenty of times that things have gone back to staff. No, maybe not at the 3rd reading, but numerous times where we've had to send things back. To me, this is no different. We're doing our due diligence. Obviously, there's 3 of us that feel strongly about it, so it's not just one person's.
I'm not.
Okay, I think
I'm not
now's a good
blaming
time to move on here. So I appreciate all of those comments that were just made from both of you. I really do. We have a motion on the table, which is to move on section 2 through 19. Any other questions? And I feel like everybody does do their homework. I wanna make sure that I put that in there. I know that sometimes things do slip by. We just wanna be really conscious of the time right now. So any other questions on sections 2 through 19? All right, Jackie.
Councilmember Rabe,
Aye.
Dalby,
Aye.
Stones,
Aye.
pardon,
Aye.
Armstrong,
Aye.
Richardson,
Aye.
Beach.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to item 7, council report. Charlie, do you have enough information from us first before we move on?
Yeah, we can bring this up at a later meeting. My only thing is that section 1, really what the change was reorganizing the way it's currently written. So if council wants us to change that, because it still is written that way, it's just organized a little bit differently. So if the intent is to get rid of the 3/4 majority with a planning commission no vote, we're going to need some direction from the council at some point to take that to the planning.
How about I have the 3
Yeah, that's perfect.
send me emails, and by Wednesday, you might have to remind me.
Just wanna,
I'm staring,
just want
but I'll
the
get it
council
all
to
to
know
you.
that.
Perfect, so if you could let me know your concerns and I'll get those to him. Okay, so now moving on to item A, under council reports, I need a first and second motion to receive and file the May 2024 EMS billing activity report.
So moved.
Second.
Are there any questions? We have Captain in the back here filling in. We're usually pretty light on chief, so. Yeah. There are no questions. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item B, and this is, I'd like to ask, I guess, our legal counsel. I'd like to talk about this committee that is under item B. Due to numbers and kind of a strategy maybe of them breaking off and going independent. Do I need to get this motion first for the appointment? To have the conversation on hometown pride.
Yeah, comments, we have to have the first and the second. Sorry.
Nope, no, thank you. So I need a first and second motion on a consideration of the appointment of Joey Nelson to Hometown Pride Committee for a term beginning immediately and ending July 1st, 2025.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so Hometown Pride, currently right now has 6 members on it. And I think it's 9 to 15 is the recommended. We've struggled to get some people to join. And so, I've had a conversation with Melissa as well. She's kind of researched how some of the other hometown prides in the county work, and they are independent away from the city. So, which means it wouldn't require staff time to sit into these meetings. They're an independent organization. And wouldn't have to come through us for approval. They would branch off and be their own if they wanted to stay, but I think we all know we're struggling to get people to join it now. One of the members will be moving, Heidi, so we'll be down to 5. If we make this appointment, we're back to 6, but we're still nowhere close to the 9 that is required. And I start to have to ask myself, is this a good use of Doug Byland's time for staff? If, you know, we don't have enough members. I mean, technically, I don't know. I guess that's a quorum if 9's the minimum. So any other discussions? And again, this is nothing to do with the applicant at all. And I feel bad that I meant to call you, Jackie, actually on Friday and ask if maybe we could hold off so we could have a conversation. But does anybody have any other opinions on that? I appreciate all they do, but again, we're begging people and they shouldn't.
So if it's not affiliated with the city, then would they still have to get approval from the council in order to complete certain projects around the town?
And Melissa, you know more about how they operate in Norwalk. I would assume so. If they're doing art projects or murals, you would still have to come to us.
Well, I think it would work similar to like Park Friends. I'll just use them as an example. If they're doing something in a park, they go through the Parks Commission. And if they're doing something on city property, then they would come to city council.
Exactly. Basically, if we were putting any money into it, it required approval of the city for the use of those funds or be placed on our plan. Very similar to what the Hometown Pride does right now with the county, trying to place some monuments and whatnot on county properties, so they're seeking approval from that, but they're not.
Do you think by not having it affiliated with the city, you're gonna boost the commission rate?
I'm not, I don't know. That's one where I don't know. I mean, it's.
Well, I'll tell you from my perspective and just talking to other hometown prides in the county and also talking to the person who runs hometown prides at a state level. So from a county perspective, we are the only hometown pride still affiliated with city council. All the others have separated. I look at Norwalk because they're similar in size. They aren't affiliated with the city in terms of appointments. They do operate very closely with the city because when you need support such as police and EMS for event coverage, you know, you need to make sure that you have good relationships there. And much like any other event parades that run through the city. But they put on a huge music festival in Norwalk. Normally, they're not doing it this year, but that requires a lot of coordination. Our hometown pride doesn't do anything like that. Our biggest event is the parade. And there's Carlisle, who their committee is very large. They also are not affiliated with the city, but they have several city employees. Their city clerk is, I believe, the chair of their committee. Milo, same way. They take on very big projects for Milo. they've done a lot down there. And then, looking at it from a state perspective, Lauren Ditzler, who was the coach in the beginning, when Hometown Pride became a thing, I don't know, Steve, I think you were involved very early on. I don't
Yeah.
even know when that was, maybe 2010,
It was
somewhere.
before
back
that for
there.
me, my bad.
Before
Thanks.
this. I
When it
just.
started in the city. or the town.
I was when I
It was
first, it was like
only
20.
here, I thought, it's only been here 5 years, cause when they decided they were done with their 5 years that they stay on, Lauren was.
She was extended.
She wasn't.
Yeah, she was
Extended, yeah.
extended.
Okay, so.
I was
see
looking
that-
back at like some of the original documents and they went back pretty far, but so I would ask her from a state perspective, how many hometown prides were under city council, fewer than 10% statewide.
And I did talk to some of the individuals on the committee and it is difficult sometimes. I know Melissa and I had this conversation. It is, Hometown Pride is the big city PTO, right? And PTA. You always struggle to get the volunteers and the people to come. And it's needed. It's just how do we function that and how do we make sure we're being wise with Doug Byland's time? Cause he has to sit in the meetings. And some of the other feedback was if they could do meetings at night, if they could do them at restaurants, meeting people's homes, maybe a little bit more flexibility. And we have 7 hometown prides, it looks like, in Warren County, and of those, I guess if we're the only ones still tied, maybe that's what we should task this group to do. And the other reason that we're having this conversation is because when looking at our website, everybody on Hometown Pride expired June 30th, 2024. And not that I meant for that to happen, it just happened. So while they can still act in their capacity, I think it probably a greater conversation.
So basically, you know, with all of them being expired, now would be the time to essentially separate it from the city.
Yes, and not move forward with,
Any reappointments.
which
or new
while I
appointments.
hope that in their wanting to go independent, this appointment is absolutely their first call, hey, would you wanna join us? But they are still finishing up projects that they have like Buxton. Or,
Buxton,
yes, Wonder in Buxton, thank you, so.
the installation, like the sculpture installation is July 27th. That's when we're gonna unveil it, but Doug can speak to more of the dates than I can.
So essentially, to remove them from the city, would it take an ordinance to do that?
I don't know, because I'm catching you guys off guard too, cause I didn't even have the conversation with staff.
We would need to go back and look, see what we would need to do to dissolve ourselves or separate ourselves from that agency, but it's not on the agenda tonight.
Yes, so it's just the kind of, what do we wanna do moving forward? So I welcome.
Can we do that second meeting in November? Start that process.
Well, I think we can give the direction to them that they could start organizing themselves. We have to
Well, yeah.
either way, we
Hometown
need to
Pride,
reappoint.
Hometown Pride, again, I'm gonna be asking the question every time we have a council meeting. Is this something that gets us closer to passing that?
Does it free
budget?
up city staff time? Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's.
We've got a lot of
And that's what,
commissions that.
yeah, I understand, but if we have to create an ordinance and those kinds of things, again, that's from staff time. I'm just asking to make sure that we are cognizant of that every time we do that.
So for now, a solution might be to continue as is.
And
Doug's gonna have to spend the time on Wonder on Buxton either way. And
I would say make the appointment and then in November we come back and talk about it. Would that be okay with you, Melissa? Do you think that's a good way to do it?
I think so, because he wants to serve, and if we were to delay it, maybe it would turn him away.
Perfect.
Is that okay with
That
you?
is wonderful. We have a first and second motion. Jackie. Caught her off guard there.
Councilmember Rabe. Dalby.
Aye.
Stones.
Aye.
Armstrong.
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
Beach.
Aye.
All right, well, welcome aboard, Joey Nelson. And moving on to item C is council committee reports updates. Are there any to give?
Did you get the information on the MAC meeting tomorrow morning at 7:30?
I haven't gotten anything on Mac.
Okay.
And I've even emailed the lady myself.
Oh.
But if you forwarded it to me, I will be in attendance at a MAC meeting tomorrow at 7:30
I'll
AM.
try to get that to you.
I'm
Okay.
really excited.
I know you are. Thank you.
Mayor, I do have an update.
Okay.
Timely email from Greater Des Moines Partnership, actually, at 4:57 PM from Brock Conrad. So just some social media information. Hopefully some of you maybe saw an Indianola post that was out there from the Greater Des Moines Partnerships Facebook page, but he gave some information on like accounts reached was 32,525. Had 24,409 views, 1,800 engagements, 130 shares. I maybe was one of those. 49 saves and just under 30 hours of total watch time.
Okay.
The landing page that they talked about when they were here. This just says June, landing page June. It's had 7,455 page views, and that's reading it, a 1,783% increase in page views compared to the entire year of 2023.
Amazing.
So just giving that update there for everybody. Hot off the presses.
Thank you.
Did you forward those numbers too onto us?
Yeah,
I stopped writing. Thank you. Any other reports? Okay. move on. Under the mayor's report, item A is community update. So it is July, which means it is the busiest month in Indianola. Kicking off this week, we have the True Bank Golf Challenge. And that's always exciting. And Doug, the park is looking spectacular. So kudos to you and your team. And I'm pretty sure Angie Buchanan or Doug, somebody fixed the tree Mayor's Youth Council planted. Didn't survive some storms, but they fixed it. We have National Balloon Classic coming up. We've got the Opera, the Fair, and RAGBRAI. So, well, of course, if anyone's around, we will need more volunteers for RAGBRAI. And then also we have the Warren County Economic Development Breakfast that's coming up at the end of the month. I know Charlie forwarded that on, and Ben, you had it in a report, or you re-forwarded it, I think, from vacation. So that's always a great event. It always rains. It's definitely, every year it's rained. So, but it's inside and it's out at the balloon field. That's all I have. So item B, I need a first and second motion on the approval and appointment of Scott Grissom to the Indianola Wellness Campus Board of Trustees for a term beginning July 1st, 2024 and ending July 1st, 2027.
So moved.
Second. Any questions? Jackie?
Councilmember Beach? Aye. Ray?
Aye.
Dolby?
Aye.
Stones?
Aye.
Armstrong?
Aye.
Richardson?
Aye.
Okay, welcome aboard, Scott. Item C, I need a first and second motion on the approval of a reappointment of Adam Boytz to the Indianola Municipal Utilities Board of Trustees for a term beginning July 1st, 2024 and ending July 1st, 2030.
So moved.
Second.
That sounded bizarre. Any questions? A long time, big commitment, Jackie.
Councilmember Dolby?
Aye.
Stones?
Aye.
Armstrong?
Aye.
Richardson?
Aye.
Beach?
Aye.
Ray?
All right, moving on, under public consideration and old business. I need a first and second motion on a resolution approving the Indianola Housing Study and Needs Assessment.
So moved.
Second.
Charlie.
And I'm gonna hand it off to Abby Eckberg with Confluence, and she will give the council an update once we get the presentation loaded up here.
And this is what you guys presented to P and Z, right?
Yep, and it's gonna be dumbed down, well, I don't wanna say dumbed down, that's not the right terminology, but it's shorter. version.
Just so you know, I'm pretty sure all of us watched
Yeah.
P and Z, so,
Sweet, okay.
so we have seen.
Awesome, thank you very much. Well,
So that'll
Mayor and
save you.
Council, yeah, very much the abbreviated version of the P and Z presentation for that. So again, just really highlighting the kind of broad strokes, hopefully having seen the P and Z presentation and hopefully reading the plan, realizing hopefully the front matter of the plan with the demographics and the public input summary being fairly approachable and readable and hopefully somewhat interesting for you all as you traverse that report there. Thank you. So looking at then, just.
Just need to close that. There we go, perfect. She's gonna say no. You open it in Chrome instead, because you don't have right click. Don't send.
Just might have to have you be my celebrity scroller over
That's
here.
fine.
Okay. All right. So want to hit like slide full. Perfect, thank you. We were tasked from staff to look at 8 separate kind of areas of focus within the housing realm in Indianola today. So looking at what your current standings are for demographics and incomes from a household perspective, looking at your existing housing stock characteristics from a very parcel specific lens, then taking those numbers, providing some projections and moving forward into housing trends and what that would impact your housing market moving forward. We did engage the community via our interactive engagement website, as well as a series of stakeholder interviews. And then we're obviously here today to present with you all following P&Z. No, you're good. If I can just do this one, there we go. So overview of the entire plan being here on the screen with introduction, just saying why we're planning. We also recognize that a lot of people don't understand a lot of the acronyms and things that we're speaking about within the plan itself. So there's a definitions glossary there for people to refer to as they read the plan. Running again through the demographics and household incomes, looking at the housing stock characteristics from a very parcel specific standpoint. Looking then at housing needs indicators, which is what I'll primarily focus in on my presentation here today. Then the public input summary, looking at the website results as well as the stakeholder interviews, and then concluding with those strategies and recommendations, summarizing everything. So within the housing needs indicators section, we looked at housing demand estimates. And so wanting to really focus in on this with this presentation to highlight how to understand these data sets, how to use these as a resource for you all moving forward, making decisions. And so the graph that you see here on your screen today utilizes 2021 census data, the 5-year estimates here. That dark navy bar that you see across the spread there indicating different or representing different household income ranges throughout the community today. What we've then gone into is defined what units are available within your community today from an owner-occupied standpoint and a renter-occupied standpoint, following HUD's 30% affordability rule. And so each of those kind of solid bars there with yellow representing homes available within the community, pink representing rentals within the community, and how many fall within that 30% rule based on each income range. Now, when you see a red dash box around each of those kind of lighter respective colors, that shows a gap within the housing market today for each of those home ownership and rental opportunities. Whereas when you see green, that indicates a surplus within the market today. And so you'll obviously see the surplus circled in within the $25,000 to $75,000 income range within the community today, which is a strong thing for us to see, but also an indicator of competition from neighboring income ranges as well. So something for us to better understand as we look at different price ranges within the housing demand tables that I'll go through here within the next few slides. As part of the reporting process, we wanted to obviously produce some projections for the community moving through 2050. And so these projections identify a population of about 23,600 residents by 2050. With an associated about 3,200 households added following your current average household size. So these numbers are pivotal and crucial to then the 5, 10, and 15-year target projections that we produce as part of this report. And these really just help us better understand how many total units and how many total needed acres are needed to produce said housing units to respond back to the growth in the community. So the target mix that we've identified for the community takes what you currently have, which is predominantly single family residential, but then identifies what those identified housing preferences were from the interactive engagement website and the stakeholder interviews. And we've adjusted the target mix to be about 75% detached single family, so your traditional single family home, 10% attached, looking at your duplexes, your townhomes, your row houses, and then 15% being your multifamily, so more of your apartments, your senior living facilities, and so on. And so when we look all the way through to 2040, we see that you have a demand for an additional 1,600 units, which roughly equates to about 800 acres of total land development through 2040.
Was that 800 acres for single family residential?
It's spread out throughout each mix, so it's roughly 420 acres for detached single family, following 3 dwelling units per acre. So then we were also tasked to look at this from an income range. So that's where that first graph that I walked through kind of pairs in here as well. And so when we look at the spread of kind of low, moderate, and high income ranges within the community today, we also then split those out from an owner occupied and a renter occupied standpoint. One thing that P&Z had brought up within this conversation was the 0% of the high income currently available to, or currently in existence today, and not seeing that totally translated within the table that I'm about to show. But that's one thing to recognize. Within the current stock today, it's not represented because you currently don't have anything that falls within that range that people are able to obtain. And so we're not seeing that reflected within the target projections because that we're not meeting it currently and how to move that forward. So a conversation to be had, but there also has been a note added within the report itself following that conversation, just saying because it doesn't exist today doesn't mean it's not an opportunity to include it as a development typology down the road. On that bottom right chart as well, that was also used to kind of spread out the shares of detached, attached, and multifamily units from owner occupied and renter occupied in this next table. Then looking at the shares of low and moderate and high income by renter and owner occupancy, following the different spreads of 90% owner occupied, 10% renter for detached, and down the line there as well. So this, again, is just a reference table for you all to better understand what kind of benchmarks you are hitting along the way as residential development does occur throughout the community. One thing, and I think a sense of encouragement that I noted at P&Z as well, is when we look at your planned developments through 2030, I believe it was, you guys are slated for a little over 700 units already being constructed. And when we look at the table, obviously 750 units being projected through that year. So I think that serves as kind of a nice benchmark, but also kind of gut check on this table and the projections produced as part of this report. Any questions on those tables before I move into the recommendations? So as part of this report, we've produced a series of strategies and recommendations, as well as a kind of reference table for you all to go back through and check through for once you achieve certain tasks along the way. The first kind of bucket of strategies we're looking at is marketing and development ready communication. So sharing your housing stories to better represent what a renter looks like within the community of Indianola. The Polk County Housing Trust Fund actually did this within their, I believe it was their 2015 plan. Showcasing different affordable units and different housing stories within the community or the county itself. Also looking at just marketing Indianola from a broader standpoint. A lot of people, when we had our stakeholder interviews, didn't realize, or they knew because they lived in the community, but it is a battle to just explain to people how close you truly are to the Des Moines Metro. And so making sure that we're highlighting that and marketing it. Kind of taking the driving seat perspective on RFPs. And so when you have development ready sites, how can you produce active RFPs to attract desired developments, having kind of report cards for those development ready sites as well, just to identify the geotechnical services that have been provided within those, what the land ownership is, what their zoning and future land use has been identified as, and general planning and zoning training, just to make sure we're being efficient with each process. For strategy 2, looking at promoting alternative housing types, the real thing to focus in on this one is looking at those desired housing types from public input, ranch style townhomes, family friendly rentals, looking at young professional rentals, and homes for sale for under $300,000, really being the most mentioned housing typologies we heard throughout the public input period there. A few of those looking at accessory dwelling units, 3D printed homes, cottage cluster developments, really just kind of pushing the boundaries on what we can encourage within the community to also respond back to needed housing types within different affordability ranges. For strategy 3 of creative housing solutions, the first two really hitting the point on infill development and how to complete that within the community. So infill being kind of the fancy word of saying, when you have a vacant parcel, how can we redevelop this to bring it back online and include it from an organic growth kind of standpoint? So making sure that that is easily approachable. This could also be accomplished through that pre-approved residential design kind of catalog. And so that would look at identifying a series of predetermined designs from an architectural standpoint that the city is comfortable with proceeding forward with. Having those as a set kind of catalog for people to page through and say, okay, I have an infill parcel lot. I think it's, the zoning for it is R1 single family. We can proceed with this kind of design standpoint or design build project following that catalog there, so that it's a really easy, approachable, kind of one-off small developer scaled project there. Looking at energy efficiency as well as addressing homelessness within the community being a top topic that we heard throughout the public input as well. And so looking at this being accomplished through a regional standpoint, having a committee within the community today, as well as a strategic plan to kind of understand the city's initiatives and motivations for that moving forward. Strategies 4 is really just looking at your current processes and how to make these a little more efficient and approachable for the general public. A lot of people mentioned the utility confusion of who their water provider or their water provider was, or their whether it was Mid-Am or the Indianola Utilities. Thank you. Having adequate staffing for marketing, for grant writing, for anything of that sort. Development review processes. So this case study that we have here from the city of Belton, Missouri, they have a really handy guidebook that brings people to the quick links of different forms that they would need to fill out, different contact information for who that staff contact would be on that kind of project, the permitting processes, the timeline, and so on. And then last but not least, looking at where to promote new housing. So really the threading of the needle between the comprehensive plan and its housing strategies, as well as then this housing needs report, understanding where you guys have already identified new growth to occur, how many units that would look like, different infill location opportunities, as well as taking advantage of different publicly owned parcels in the city's ownership today. So those are kind of the 5 big bucket strategies we have going for you all within that abbreviated presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
We know, so we're talking, the additional need for roughly 800 acres. So some of the highlighted area outside of our current city limits, does that equate to roughly 800 acres?
I wish I had a better estimate of that off the top of my head. I can get back to you on that as well. I don't have a strong number on that.
I don't know how important it is. I was just curious. I was going through the graphs yesterday and I was just curious what outside the city limits 800 acres would look like. So.
Yes, very good question. I can follow back up with you on that as well.
And was to say we can provide that too, but
yeah,
I'm almost positive that that yellow area that you see, the vacant ground, it's probably gonna be pretty close to 800 acres. And they're just knowing that a lot of that's 40-acre tracts and how many we have in there. I'm pretty sure we've got that, but yeah, we'll work together and cover that. We can report back to council.
Shirley, would you like me to ask my question
Sure.
now? So I know that we said that our average lot size was 0.40 acres. I'm just curious what that would be if we lopped off the top 10% and bottom 10.
And we did do that and we
Okay.
looked at it, it goes up to a 0.42.
Okay.
So not a huge increase, but a moderate increase there.
Okay.
Sorry, Steve, what was your question?
Our average lot size is 0.40, so I was curious what it would be if it was lopped off the top 10 and bottom 10 to get rid of any statistical anomalies that may lie in there, to get a better picture of what our average lot size would be.
You said it increases the lot size by taking that off?
By taking the top 10 and the bottom 10 off, it went from a 0.4 to a 0.42.
Because aren't majority of our homes in the city under 0.36 acres?
The average lot size when we
Not
looked at it.
homes, but lots, sorry.
Yeah, so when we actually look at it, and this is from the presentation from P and Z, so I'm sorry I have it here handy, but the 0.4 is what we have shown there.
Right, but when looking at the actual statistical numbers of each lot, so there's 4,073 total lots. Of those, 3,259 of them are less than 0.36 acres.
Have that or do you have that from the report?
Yeah, I got that from.
Sorry, I don't have it on the slide in front of me here.
Is that on Christine?
Yeah.
On page 38.
I'm wondering, just thinking out loud on that one too, we do have some of those lots in town that, 15, 20, 25 acres where there's one house sitting on it. So that's really gonna throw a lot of that off on the top side as well too. So that could be what's contributing to it.
Yeah, just because I mean, to me, like, it shouldn't increase if you're taking
the
out
bottom
those.
10%, those, you're taking a lot of those
The
small lots.
super
out
small
that would
lots.
Bring the average down.
From the, but it doesn't bring it down that much, because then you still have I mean, about 2,444 lots that are gonna be in that. You know. Well, over half that would be.
Any other questions? Thank you for the presentation. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Jackie?
Ray,
Aye.
Dalby,
Aye.
Stones,
Aye.
Armstrong.
Aye.
Richardson.
Moving on to number 2 is 911 North C Street. I need a motion to open the public hearing regarding a nuisance at 911. Do I have to?
Yep, no, we don't need a motion because it's not a public hearing, it's just a hearing, so.
Just a hearing,
and we're
okay.
continuing it, or was continuing from the last meeting.
Okay, so, I
You
don't,
just open
I don't
it.
need a motion, a
Nope.
regular motion then to
Nope.
open it. Okay,
Nope.
so hearing regarding a nuisance at 911 North C Street. Charlie,
I've got all the slides from the last meeting up here if we need to go over any of it, but I will let you know that we followed up this morning on this one, and all of the items that we had noted on there have been taken care of.
it looks good. So, our next item would be a resolution determining if a nuisance exists, and it does not sound like there is a nuisance. I drove by as well too, and it does look good. He did everything he said he would do, so, I think we would vote that a nuisance does not exist any longer, correct? That'd be what we do?
That would
or
be
we
staff's
move on?
recommendation, yes.
Okay, so can I get a first
I'll make a motion.
second motion?
We,
Nuisance
no-
does not exist at 911 North C Street.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Jackie?
Councilmember Beach,
Aye.
Ray,
Aye.
Dalby,
Aye.
Stones,
Aye.
Armstrong,
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
All right, I just got excited. There's a public hearing coming up. So can I get a first and second motion to open the public hearing regarding an amendment to section 165.06 zoning regulations, site plan regulations, and procedures of the Code of Ordinances of Indianola, Iowa?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. We are now in the, Jackie needs to take the roll first.
Councilmember Beach,
Aye.
Ray,
Aye.
Dalby,
Aye.
Stones.
Aye.
Armstrong,
Aye.
Richardson.
Aye.
So we are now in the public hearing. Charlie?
And I know council's well aware of Iowa Senate File 455 that was signed into law by the governor on April 10th. Essentially what that does is it changes the way that cities can regulate stormwater during site planning and subdivision reviews. So as such, we have adjusted the regulations within our site plan reviewing code that is in front of you this evening. And I know subdivision code, we made those changes with that new code that was adopted on that. So there's no changes needed on the subdivision side of things, but it's pretty simple. Again, we're just limited onto exactly what we can regulate moving forward, and those changes are reflected in the ordinance. So happy to answer any questions on it.
Sounds like a riveting topic.
So, and we were concerned it's gonna cost us being the city, the taxpayers.
What it does is the new code says that we are only able to regulate on a developer up to a certain point. If the city then wants to regulate any further than that, we have to pay for it, so.
And so the developer is gonna go off of state code, right? And then if we're more stringent than the state code, the city's gonna have to
Yes.
make up that difference.
Yep, so what we've done is we've now matched what state code says, so if there is a particular project that we look at that the council agrees that we wanna be a little bit more stringent on, it would be something that we'd work on the developer for, but those costs would have to be paid for by the city.
So there's things such as, one of the things that came out of Senate File 455 was topsoil that would be put on a residential lot. Currently, what is it, we require 3 inches or something like that? I'm sorry, Charlie.
Yep, I'm sorry, and I'm not prepared on that one, but I know that I believe we were following suit us on that one, so we didn't have anything specifically written into our code on that one. So when SUDAS changes on that one, then we'll reflect on that, but I don't remember the exact amount.
So one of the things is like an inch of, they're just gonna put a minimal layer over the clay that's there for grass and other kinds of vegetation. But more importantly, it's the process of figuring out the runoff and how that's all gonna go in, play into the development. And anything more stringent than what the Senate file is gonna require, then, as Charlie said, we're gonna have to pick up the cost of those. And there's some areas, thinking of one that's going on right now in our community that, you know, that has pretty good sized area that was eroded, and we needed to make sure that that was taken care of. Those kinds of things may or may not be affected by Senate File 455 in this ordinance. So there are some things that we aren't gonna see right now, because what's essentially happened is we've allowed, 455 is gonna allow for more downstream erosion and drainage in those particular areas essentially. We want to control that. We need to control that. A good example would be Eastern Park and that area over on the east side of Indianola. If we require the developer in the future to do those kinds of things to maintain or to mitigate some of that runoff, that because of heavy rains and things like that flood some of those basements, then we would have to pay for that rather than the developer in that particular case. So that's where your additional cost.
Any other questions? Can I get a first and second motion to exit the public hearing?
Moved.
Jackie?
Councilmember Solms?
Aye.
Armstrong?
Aye.
Richardson?
Aye.
Beach?
Aye.
Ray?
Aye.
Dolby?
Aye.
Can I get a first and second motion on the first consideration of an ordinance requiring an amendment to section 165.06 zoning regulations, site plan regulations and procedures of the Code of Ordinances of Indianola, Iowa?
Moved.
Second.
And this is just regarding what we just came out of the public hearing for. So Jackie?
Councilmember Dolby?
Aye.
Solms?
Aye.
Armstrong?
Aye.
Richardson?
Aye.
Beach?
Aye.
Ray?
Aye.
All right, can I get a first and second motion to open the public hearing regarding an amendment to section 165.09 zoning regulations, building design standards of the Code of Ordinances of Indianola, Iowa?
So moved. Second.
Jackie?
Councilmember Solms?
Aye.
Armstrong?
Aye.
Richardson?
Aye.
Beach?
Aye.
Ray?
Aye.
Dolby?
Aye.
All right, we are now in the public hearing. And Charlie?
Yep, similar on this one. This is in response to legislation that was passed this year and signed by the governor on May 17th, 2024. But what this does is it adopts changes to how cities can regulate building design standards for residential construction. Mostly on this one, we were currently in compliance with the new state code. We did delete a little bit of language in here just to make sure that it was abundantly clear that we were doing no regulating on the single family side. Then what we did is we made a change to our code. So we used to just talk multifamily, and which multifamily is when you start stacking units on top of each other. So what state code now says is if it's multifamily with 12 units or less, we cannot regulate design standards. It's when you get above 12 units, then we have the ability to put in design standards. So what we did here is we just did a multifamily 12 units or fewer and multifamily 12 units or more in there, and created two different classifications so we can continue to regulate on those multifamily that are 12 or more. So
what essentially happens if we have somebody that wants to do a horizontal regime where there is commercial in the lower portion, we can regulate that. Residential above, if it's less than 12 units, they can do whatever they want on that particular thing. We have no ability to regulate that any longer. Really?
correct.
And so,
With some exceptions.
yes,
but
with some, yes, you're right, correct.
There is an exception written there about overlay districts and stuff like that,
yeah.
which we are looking at as part of our gateway study that's currently going on right now, but.
If you're part of an overlay study, then there can be regulations to do that and that, but that's a process again that Charlie's staff has to work through. And so again, what this has done is limit what we can decide if we want to have something on the commercial corridor, but yet we want to have some, maybe some mixed use development there. It's going to really regulate what we can do. It's a vinyl siding bill is really what it's called.
Which allows for it.
What's that?
Which allows for it.
Yes, this bill says this, the legislation from the House File Act 2388 basically says that we cannot keep them from putting vinyl siding on that section above there. We can't, it's gonna be different.
And it got the vinyl siding bill, and I'll just be frank on this one. I mean, there's some cities out there that say you can't do vinyl siding at all in residential construction. We don't do that. We never did that. So again, there's not much change from our end because we were pretty lax on the residential side anyways. Really where the change comes in for us is that multifamily that's 12 or fewer, so. But some other communities were much more strict than we were, and the bill was written in response to those communities.
Any other questions? Can I get a first and second motion to exit the public hearing?
Second.
Jackie?
Councilmember Stones? Aye. Armstrong?
Aye.
Richardson?
Aye.
Beach?
Aye.
Ray?
Aye.
Dolby?
Aye.
I need a first and second motion on the first consideration of an ordinance requiring an amendment to section 165.09 zoning regulations, building design standards of the Code of Ordinances of Indianola, Iowa.
So moved.
Second.
Again, this is just referencing the public hearing. Jackie?
Councilmember Dolby?
Aye.
Stones?
Aye.
Armstrong?
Aye.
Richardson?
Don't like it, but we have to follow state law.
Beach?
Aye.
Ray?
Couldn't tell, could you?
Not at all.
That was the longest I have ever heard.
Moving on, I need a first and second motion to open the public hearing regarding an application for the right-of-way vacation and conveyance of the alley located west of the residence at 705 North Howard Street and located in block 27 of College Edition, Iowa, Warren County, Iowa.
Moved.
Right, Jackie?
Councilmember Stones?
Aye.
Armstrong?
Aye.
Richardson?
Aye.
Beach?
Aye.
Ray?
Aye.
Dolby?
Aye.
Charlie?
And Scotty Backup has submitted, and I'm sorry, on the screen it says variance application, that should say vacation application for an alley located west of his residence at 705 North Howard Street. This is a north-south alley that is proposed for vacation, and it's located on property that is adjacent to his and is unimproved. So the picture here shows the section of alley that'll be vacated, and then the next here shows that on an aerial photo. You can see, again, he owns that property that is outlined in the blue. So essentially he owns kind of two triangular or two square pieces in there, rectangular pieces is what I should say, in there with an alley that divides the two of them. So no alley actually in there. The city owns the property. He's just looking for that to be vacated and deeded back over to him. Any questions on that? Happy to answer them.
All right,
I would move that we close the public hearing.
can I get a second?
Second.
Jackie?
Councilmember Beach?
Aye.
Ray?
Aye.
Dolby?
Aye.
Stones?
Aye.
Armstrong?
Aye.
Richardson?
Aye.
All right, can I get a first and second motion on the first consideration of an ordinance regarding an application for the right-of-way vacation and conveyance of an alley located west of residence located at 705 North Howard Street and located in block 27 of College Edition, Iowa, Warren County, Iowa.
Moved.
Jackie?
Councilmember Stones?
Aye.
Armstrong?
Aye.
Richardson?
Aye.
Beach?
Aye.
Ray?
Aye.
Dolby?
Aye.
Okay, last public hearing for the evening. Can I get a first and second motion to open the public hearing regarding an application for the right-of-way vacation and conveyance of an alley located south and west of the Indianola Public Library, located at 207 North B Street and located in block 6 of the original town plat of Indianola, Warren County, Iowa.
So moved.
Second.
All right, Jackie?
Councilmember Dolby?
Aye.
Stones?
Aye.
Armstrong?
Aye.
Richardson?
Aye.
Beach?
Aye.
Ray?
Aye.
Right, we are now in the public hearing. Charlie?
Yep, and the city is requesting the vacation and conveyance of the east, west, and north-south alley adjacent to the Indianola Public Library at 207 North B Street. This request is part of the land exchange between the city of Indianola and Warren County, where the county will become the owner of grounds for the library building and adjacent grounds. So for us to transfer the alley portions of it, we first have to vacate the alley and then transfer over to them. Just want to note that the alleyway is solely used for access to the public library. picture on the screen here shows where that vacation will be, and then if I transpose that over to an aerial photo, you can see that. So that east-west portion right there is mainly used for access into the library parking lot. I know they have a library drop-off box there as well, and then that north-south portion there is all mainly just a grass lot. So with that, if there's any questions on it, I would be happy to answer.
Seeing none, can I get a first and second motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Jackie?
Councilmember Dalby?
Aye.
Jones? Armstrong?
Aye.
Richardson?
Aye.
Aye.
I get exited out of my agenda. Sorry about that. First and second motion on the first consideration of an ordinance regarding an application for the right-of-way vacation and conveyance of an alley located south and west of the Indianola Public Library located at 207 North B Street and located in block 6 of the original town plat of Indianola, Warren County, Iowa.
So moved.
Second.
Jackie?
Councilmember Beach?
Aye.
Ray?
Aye.
Dalby?
Aye.
Jones?
Aye.
Armstrong?
Aye.
Richardson?
Aye.
All right, moving on to other business and city manager's report from Ben Reeves.
I'm just coming back from vacation. I don't have a whole lot to report. Just wanted to say thank you to all the coverage from everybody still getting unburied at this time. I do appreciate the mayor reviewing all the different activities going on in the month of July and work at every level of the department. Staff is really helping us to advance the interest of our community. Couple things I just wanna put forth really quick. Of course, it's July 4th, so we're closed on Thursday. On Friday, a lot of our staff are out, so it's gonna be a little bit bare bones on the Friday. We do have a SERPTA meeting on July 9th from 4 to 6 over at the IWC public room. This is a safety streets program road show that's going around all of the different cities in our area, and this is our turn for this for the community to learn a little bit more about the Safe Street program at the state level.
Ben, July 9th, where was that again?
At IWC from 4 to 6.
Okay, thank you.
And of course, League Conference is coming up. I just want to make sure that you're all aware of that on September 18th through the 20th in Sioux City. I know Melissa indicated that you were interested in participating. If anyone else is interested in participating, let us know so we can get you registered.
My registration should be covered, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, so that opens it up if anybody else can go. I think it's well worth the time. Mayor, if I can just remind everybody too, if anybody's listening or whatever, but fireworks are from third and fourth, is that correct?
4th, 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. Well, thanks.
Legal fireworks.
Legal fireworks.
All right, so we've been going on all.
Please be respectful of your
With
neighbors.
the anybody that has permits to do them on another night.
This is
Correct, yes, there are several.
Mr. Deer Run and
Disc golf, yes. Okay, can I get a first and second motion to adjourn?
So moved.
One last question. I think we need to get Ben's review and he can decide whether.
That will be coming up. I talked to Ron about that, and
Okay.
so I'll
15.
share that in my one-on-one and the date
Okay.
that we'll be doing that with Ben, so
Okay.
yeah. A little bit ahead of us, but we got it.
Okay.
It's coming up. Okay, first and second motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Second, opposed, is what I meant to say. Okay, good. All right, well, we're adjourned. We'll take about 2 minutes and then we have a study session. I just heard the audible sigh. I know, but I'm so hungry, I just keep eating it.
I have not had one yet. It's an amazing thing, yeah.
Well,
Now
Hadley
that you
gave up
say
sugar,
that.
so
Sugar?
Hadley gave up sugar. And so our house, we're trying to all,
Sorry. I didn't
obviously.
scream.
Oh, that's
Iced tea is the way to go.
I love iced tea.
Condition.
All right, we are in the study session and
Introductory comments that.
beginning with the
Sure,
Willowcrest.
Sure, I'm gonna hand it off to Dave Muller,
Go
but
ahead and pass it off.
Willowcrest, the route and alignment study was something that we had budgeted for in the last fiscal year, the one that just ended yesterday. So finishing up that process right now, I'm gonna hand it off to Dave, but really what this was looking at is just the alignment of the future Willowcrest corridor, both east and west of 65, 69. West, it's a little bit easier. East, it gets a little bit crazy because you've got a lot of terrain through there. You got a trail that you need to cross and things like that. So I'm gonna hand it off to Dave. Dave's got a lot of information on regarding this, so.
I've got 24 slides and I promised Charlie I'd talk fast,
You have 24 slides?
but there are lots of pictures.
Oh, okay.
Lots of-
Oh, I love pictures.
So the scope of the study, as Charlie says, Willowcrest Avenue, and it's really kind of the dashed line in the comprehensive plan on the, so it starts at Country Club through Highway 65, 69, and then extends east and south to 150th Avenue on the east side of the community. So why do such a study? It is in a priority growth area. It's again, the alignment is a curve. It's a high level dashed line that there's not a lot of detail to. And it's important to look at corridor preservation so that you can have a good informed decision making early level, so you're not doesn't make an impossible project later on. So the need for the study, the need for Willowcrest, I think is pretty evident. The northeast portion of the community doesn't have a connection back to Highway 65, 69 from Hillcrest, more than 2 miles north, all the way to Somerset Hills or Somerset Road. So that's quite a distance of out of direction travel, and a connection in that space will really improve the connectivity and the developable nature of that area. So the purpose of the study, and I won't read it to you, again, is really about corridor preservation, so that we can inform future decision making, because rarely does a project like this develop very orderly from east to west and the next piece and the next piece. A lot of times it develops with a piece 2 miles this way and a mile that way, and we want to make sure that we're ahead of time thinking of things. A good example is Girard east of Kenwood, where the road stops and there's a very, very steep hill. And it's a very difficult project to get those two streets connected from across that terrain. So we want to try and avoid situations like that on a major collector roadway. So we followed we're kind of like making data-driven decisions. So we followed a process where we looked at all the existing information, utility infrastructure that's out there, what the terrain looks like, as Charlie mentioned, the traffic that's going to be generated, the drainage issues, and identified these areas of avoidance and constraints. Then we developed design criteria and controls, working with the city. Then we reviewed the information, and we went on to prepare alternatives for consideration. So quickly, we did find some interesting things. The terrain is probably one of the biggest issues. That there's a reason why there's no street connection from Highway 65, 69. That distance is the Plug Creek is a very aggressive, erosive creek, high velocities.
And there's a significant topography there as well as an abandoned railroad grade. That is now a trail. The trail is a cultural resource. So what that means is that because it's of public use, if there's any impacts to the trail, we have to go through what they call the 4F process, which is if you impact public use, you have to make sure that you accommodate that use, continue that use, and don't disrupt that use. There was.
Trail is 99.
That's correct. But it's also a cultural resource in that it is the railroad grade and location has a cultural significance. It is not what we did find is it is not a historical district. It is just a cultural resource. So there is a little more flexibility to that than if it were to be a historic district, which so that's good reason why we do all our homework.
Plug run, we'll have a lake there.
So also again, the topography is significant. There's a lot of development potential in that area. The comprehensive plan has identified it as a priority growth area. And in the future land use plan, it's been identified as a community mixed use. And that's really a broad category of development. And it's a very big area for community mixed use. A lot of times those are transitional areas in between different zonings where we'll have a commercial and industrial area and then a community mixed use, and then as a buffer between single family homes or some other kind of use. So one of the results of the study is we sort of identified that this may need a little closer review as Willowcrest is envisioned. It's really a minor arterial major collector. So it makes sense for it to be possibly closer to the industrial land use so that can feed directly on this arterial. And again, can be a good buffer between different land uses. So we have identified a need for a potential little mini study as to amend the comprehensive plan so that the land use and is changed to fit with the preferred alternative of Willowcrest as it traverses through this part of the community.
Dave, can I I'm sorry, so the suggestion is eventually run that out to Illinois Avenue then, is that right?
Yes.
Trying to get my bearings here.
Yep.
And then,
so, and again, I think where that road is a good boundary between industrial, or the industrial can be on both sides of this arterial, to better serve the traffic. So we looked at both scenarios, both of these scenarios in terms of traffic impact, and I won't go through this table. It's a very, very meticulous thing to go through. So we separated all the different land uses and the traffic that it generates. And again, that residential mixed use is generally a little denser area, a little denser traffic, and we were getting pretty high numbers if it was all residential mixed use. There's a demand for industrial area. The issue with projecting traffic for industrial areas is there's a lot of variation. Think data center and a manufacturing plant with a bunch of employees. Those are really big ends of the spectrum. So we looked at what the opportunities are and what the kind of that range and projected traffic demand and peak along the corridor in the neighborhood of 18,000 to 20,000 cars per day. That's at full build out. So that's 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 a lot of traffic, but it's also a lot of area. There's a couple hundred acres that are right off adjacent to that, and it's also serving as a collector. And it picks traffic up from outside of just the adjacency to the alignment. So that suggests that again, it's also a long area, so we anticipate that it'll take quite a while for it to build out and to generate that traffic. So we would be thinking along the lines of planning for a 4-lane roadway with auxiliary lanes at major intersections and access control planning. But from an initial construction standpoint, again, with the timing, a 2-lane initial construction might be appropriate, again, with auxiliary lanes at appropriate major intersections. So with that information, we developed a design criteria table, working with city staff. I guess the big upshot of this is that this is not envisioned as a bypass, like a 4-lane divided, interchanges bypass. That's not the purpose for this facility. So it is a major collector, minor arterial type of roadway. And so we also want to make sure that we're developing it with gentle grades and not super steep, and enough width again to expand the roadway in the future. So the next part is the fun part, where we step through the alignment from west to east. We talk about some of the interesting things that we found and some of the things that are controlling some of the decision making. So we'll start at Country Club Road, actually kind of Hoover Street and Country Club Road. This portion of the roadway has been envisioned on a number of different planning documents over the years. It has looked like this for quite a while. There's a major transmission line and an undeveloped plat that would make centering the roadway on the section line very difficult to do. So it's envisioned to be north of the section line through that segment. Again, it would be relatively nothing super fancy here. It would be close to grade. And we would look at this segment of it being approximately $3.5 to $3.7 million to build this portion of the roadway from the highway to past Country Club Road.
Ask another question.
Yes.
So guessing the Pfeiffer property there north of what on the highway, what used to be the Pfeiffer property anyway, north there would be is that in the city limits currently, Charlie?
Believe so, yeah.
So am I gaining this correctly, that the line runs here, or does it run somewhere in here?
It runs where the yellow line is, just off the section line.
So here is city? No.
The south part of that property
I know
is.
this is here, but I thought this, we had city.
Goes up, yeah.
Yeah, here, but I didn't, out here to the section line?
Yeah, so the bigger tracks are all in the city, but then those kind of farmstead tracks along 65, 69 are actually cut out.
These are cut out here?
Yep. Road, where the road's aligned, it's all in the city.
Okay. So there would have to be, would make some sense, probably somewhere along the line, do some annexation then, is that what you're asking or saying here, is that?
For this, we don't need to.
Yeah, this.
Not what I understand for this project, but yeah, down the road.
This would also serve, that future development. So as we proceed east, we get to really the very interesting part and challenging part of the project. There is a portion of the alignment just east of Highway 65, 69, again, has been planned with the preliminary plating in Summercrest Hills back in the early 2010s. There's been, drawings that show that. There's been right of way dedicated as part of that plating process, and the adjacent property owners have discussed where that is. We also built the sewer pump station and have the easement associated with the access to that. But then in the area where we're showing the circle is where things get pretty interesting. The topography, as I mentioned earlier, is very much a challenge. We have a trail crossing that we have to understand. And then we also, the terrain in this location influences the alignment much more than the property lines, where a lot of times we're respecting property lines for orderly development. This is an area where the terrain really challenges us. That's with where the curve comes from. If you see, we're crossing Plug Creek, and then we're following a minor draw up the hill so that we don't have massive amounts of cut, and that we can also serve development on both sides of that minor tributary. So that's the thinking about that alignment. It also crosses the trail at a close to perpendicular angle, so that when you cross a trail at a skew, there's safety issues, as well as if there's an overpass, it's much longer than if you cross it perpendicular. So there's a lot of things working together to make this kind of off property line alignment really make a lot of sense.
If I heard you correctly, that's where that creek runs into Plug Run, then it comes down that draw, then it runs into that creek.
Yep, that's correct. So we're want to cross this perpendicularly, right, and then we have this draw here that we're coming up the draw, reduces the construction, fits the road, or when the road fits the alignment, it works for development, it works for driving.
Have you personally been down that path? Because is that just past where that guy has his cattle crossing there on the bike trail?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep.
I got a question, Dave. So, and maybe you covered this earlier. I was trying to get my bearings on where we were talking earlier. So where we're going to cross the bike path, is there any talk of like making a tunnel underneath so the people can walk or ride their bikes? I mean, we're not having bikes.
Like the next 6 slides.
Okay, sorry. Thank you.
So you're
always thinking ahead.
That's awesome.
You're only on page 13.
Yeah, I'm rolling. I'm trying to roll as fast as we can. So this is just a little more detailed zoomed in with all the activity that's going on. I talked about the pump station that's right there. The existing development is right there. The drainage is right there. And believe it or not, that's a little bit of a constraint because that we can't back water up into the detention pond and not let the detention pond work. So we probably are going to have to oversize the culvert there so that we don't disrupt that.
Well, wouldn't you want to do that anyway if it ever becomes a 4-lane? I mean, would you want to initially put that culvert in there larger than what is needed anyway?
I think, we would size it as if it were an arterial roadway. Okay. So we would use that design criteria already. But we want to just make darn sure, because we don't want the water to overtop the road. So we have to make darn sure that we're not backing water up into that adjacent development. And so this is kind of what an at-grade crossing of that trail would look like. And then kind of just this area of the project for an at-grade crossing is about 2.1 million for this area. So we're not crazy about at-grade crossings with arterial roadways and trails. The Warren County has a policy that they, if there is a crossing, there needs to be a permit. So there's a permit process out there if there were to be a crossing. So we did look at multiple alternatives on how to make a safe crossing here. And I have some detailed information on that to share. So let's look let's look at the trail under the roadway. This is typically the cheaper alternative where you build basically a box culvert underneath the roadway. And so you lower the trail and raise the road. And you can see the red line would be the proposed profile, and the kind of the black sketchy line that looks like an EKG thing, that's the existing ground. So you can see even where the existing trail is, where the arrow is, that's pretty high in the air. So if we had a trail crossing at grade, we would be putting a significant amount of fill in this to build this roadway. And which, you know, starts to become a challenge as it relates to tying back in before the development to the south, having developable area adjacent to the roadway with that kind of fill. That's a little bit of a challenge in this scenario. And then if we look at how the trail would work, the trail then dips down and would go down relatively steep and then back up through a 12-foot by 10-foot tunnel that would be about 110 feet long. And again, the reason that we like moving the trail more than the road is it's narrower and much more affordable to do, and the design criteria is you can do it a little quicker with steeper grades. So what does that look like? That's the kind of thing that we'd be looking at. That's the trail perspective where Willowcrest would be on top of the trail. This one is a little different because it's kind of down in the hole. You dip down and come back up. We want to make sure that that the tunnels look like this. You can see all the way through the tunnel from a safety standpoint, so that there isn't an issue. And we are kind of out here in some tough country with a lot of trees, so we'd want to be cognizant of that as it relates to the design. I think I skipped over it pretty fast. It was the construction of this with the tunnel is about $2.35 million for this little portion of the project. If we look at taking the trail over, now we get to lower the profile of Willowcrest, get a little closer to existing ground, make it more relatable and developable adjacent to it. Our Plug Creek crossing isn't as long because the higher we are above it, the longer the culvert has to be. So that has some advantages. Then we would take the trail. We would wiggle the trail probably so that as Willowcrest is coming downhill, we wiggle the trail so we don't have to have it as high in the air. So we're chasing that downhill, put a little wiggle in the trail. And then you can see the profile of the trail on this exhibit where there isn't quite the drastic change in grade for this scenario, but we would be looking at a 130-foot long bridge, which is pretty significant structure. But again, it's a 12-foot trail instead of a 48-foot roadway. So there's some reasons to think about that. What does that look like? Here's an example. This is 145 feet. And the reason that we like using the pre-engineered truss is that it's very efficient in that the structure depth is above the trail instead of like normally we build beams underneath the bridge, but if you have a 3-foot beam, then you have to be 3 foot higher in the air. So we really like these pre-engineered truss bridges. And they're, very common and easily installed.
That's what Ankeny used on First Street there by Carl Chevrolet on the other side where the bike road went over, didn't it?
Yeah, that might be that one. That's one of the earlier renderings. I didn't show the light show one, which is really cool. They did a great job on that, but this was before all the aesthetic things were added to that project.
What's the lifespan on a bridge?
7,500 years. Yeah, they're much better than they used to be. That weathered steel is much more durable than, and then you don't have to paint it every 5 years. So that cost, again, I can get so excited and show the pictures that I skipped over the cost. That cost is 2.82 million. So that's again a little higher, but has some other things going for it. So as you kind of look at the alternatives, at grade is the cheapest, it usually always is, but it has some crossing safety issues. There is a county crossing policy that we would have to deal with if the trail's over. There's some operational and safety issues, but that's the most expensive. And then for the trail under, there's the culvert is always easier to maintain and cheaper than a bridge. But there are some trail function and safety issues, security issues that you need to think about. And then the adjacent development potential with that high fill as we come in higher across the valley. So there's a lot of competing things to think about, which is one of the items that we wanted to talk about before we got all the way to recommendations, to hear where we were thinking in terms of priorities, or any other questions or things that we need to consider as we build a comparison.
I think it looks like, I like how you broke all of them out. I mean, me personally, I think the trail over, while it costs more, is the best from functionality. And as you discussed in Ankeny, I think there's ways for us to capitalize on that. And as that land is a little more challenging to get to and develop, right? Make it a draw to that area, especially, as this is tying back into a major commercial corridor for us and IWC and all that. It's all right in that area. And I think it does cost more, but it's not astronomical to do it the right way the first time, have some vision and make it a good thing, in my opinion.
Anything else we need to make sure that we consider or look at, or find any more information out so we can?
All right.
Okay, we'll keep moving.
Great work. Thanks, Dave.
We gotta go. We're going on the other side. We're coming up the hill. Going up the hill, going to 143rd Street. So this is a part of this is that dashed curved line, which is always provocative, because there's, that's the existing grid pattern that we've all grown up with, is a little easier to think about than curvilinear alignments. So we did develop a family of alternatives here. One where Willowcrest would stay kind of on section line and then curve into 150th and then connect back. That's the blue one, that's number 3. And then the one that's kind of shown on the document, on the comprehensive plan, really kind of cuts through the ridge line and goes through the middle of kind of that high development area in that part of the world. And then alternative 1 kind of utilizes existing facility of East Hillcrest and 143rd Street, and develops that maybe not, again, if this is not intended to be a bypass, maybe a big sweeping curve isn't the right way to go about it. So these are multiple alternatives from a development availability standpoint and a number of acres of development. I think that's really kind of the important thing, is the timing of when this project develops and what kind of development that it supports. And whether you again want this roadway to be in the middle of the industrial area or on the edge of the industrial area. And so there's a lot of choices here. I think under any of the alternative choices, there's opportunity for phased implementation. And I think, you know, under any of the scenarios, while it's shown in red, correcting that intersection at 150th in Illinois is kind of an important thing to rectify that. That's an important project. Again, that can be a standalone project and a part of a phased implementation as it goes through. So what are kind of the pluses and minuses on this scenario? Again, number one is the Hillcrest version, the yellow one. Lots of turns in there, but again, we're also talking about 10,000 cars a day, not 50,000 cars a day. So that's not, you know, not uncharacteristic for those types of streets. It is the longest route, and for that all of that is about 4.4 million to develop that part of it. Alternative number two, same sort of things. It's in the ridge line. That's probably if there was a large industrial developer, they'd probably want to locate in the ridge line or on the ridge line and the high spot instead of on either side of this roadway. It kind of makes some smaller, big industrial parcels. It kind of cuts that up a little bit. So that's a little bit of a downside to that. But it also has that diagonal severance, which is we as Iowans don't like very much. And then alternative number three is really there's a big distance between Hillcrest and Willowcrest Extended. That's a very large area for development. That would be a long time in the future. It would function as a highway if we built it, you know, kind of a very rural area. It's also in an area where the terrain changes a lot. And so north of there, there's multiple draws, and I think everybody's been out there on 143rd Street. A lot of large residential homes. The land is pretty tough going. So this would be, you know, at the very edge of kind of the development area where it transitions then to really kind of estate residential areas. So lots of choices there. And we talked about it a lot. Charlie, I'd invite you to make any comments as it relates to this part of the project, and I'll go back to the picture.
I think the biggest thing I'll just add is, again, we're looking at it from a usability standpoint and how the land can develop in the future. So I think the one thing we pointed out with number two is you're starting to cut a lot of pieces of ground in half, which then in turn makes a lot of that ground undevelopable or more difficult to develop, I should say. So
I'm sorry, are you saying option two?
Option two, where it just kind of starts cutting parcels in half. It it makes it a lot more difficult. So one kind of respects some of the existing corridors, which we think is good, but three does open up ground a little bit more to the north. But then of course the question is our comprehensive plan doesn't really plan for much more land use north of the third option. So, are we building a road that, isn't gonna see a good rate of return on it for 25, 30, 40, 50 years even?
Essentially what we're doing is building a Hillcrest that the county paved in 1968. Because Hillcrest was you were not even in the northern part of town yet in Hillcrest. And so if you did number three, and that was my question here, would we look at a rural or urban design on that? Simply from the fact that you're probably, what are we, 55 years out now from when that was developed in 1968, when that was paved. You said you had the as-built. So, that's really what you're kind of talking about here is, is that something that we look at but consider that it's so far out? And then do you make it, I don't think you do an urban design. Personally, I think it has to probably be rural, if that ever happens.
At least for parts of it, so you could phase into, I wouldn't put the dead flat zero grades like they did on.
No, I understand what you're saying.
Booger.
Dave, your interchanges, this is all high level that we're viewing it, right?
Yeah.
Like even option one, you've got it in kind of some triangles.
Yep.
As you get further along, we could develop that interchange differently to your point of phasing.
Right.
So that you could come back and add that number 3 later if you wanted to, correct?
We tried to create enough area in the corners so that you could develop a convenience store or a small, small development. But that you're right, there's plenty of
I
flexibility
mean, I
there.
think our balanced approach as we look at this, to your point, and we just, the housing studies absorption rate, right?
Yep.
Like, what do we wanna be out here? How quick are we gonna do it? We just looked at a study that says 2040. Was it 2040, 2050? We need 800 acres.
2050, yep.
How much of that is gonna come from the northeast corridor? How much of that's gonna come from the northwest corridor that we're also opening up? And so, I think to some of that point, like I see the vision casting of way out there, but I think with some of the moves we're making personally, we might be, and I'm way open to being super wrong about this. I would love to be proved wrong. I challenge anybody to come by and develop it. But like, I think 60 years, we might not be to the third loop here. Because we're trying to be proactive and open up more on the west side. And even some of the stuff that's going on the south side of town, I think we're gonna hit those absorption rate numbers
I agree with you.
collectively.
And that's absolutely, but I think at the same time, for me, it's easy to say, 1968 to 2024. Hillcrest wasn't even in the community at that point in time. And kind of look at it that way and say, okay, so then what are we really looking at and how far are we really going with that as we move forward? And that's one of those things that kind of struck with me here too. But at 18 and 23,000 cars a day, I think maybe Maverick might want to put a station or something along there somewhere along the line.
You develop it for industrial.
That's true.
And I welcome anybody to put a giant industrial project out there.
I would also do, yes, absolutely.
On the option one, where do you have, well, what is there? I'm trying to figure out where it would tie into to Highway 92.
So 150th Street that's
the far east one, but on option one, so when it goes south and then it before it heads back east, is there a road right there?
Help me understand.
It ties into 17th, Ron.
Oh, that's 17th?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so this. Almost where the number one is actually, is where I would.
Talking about
Yeah.
That's 143rd.
That ties into
143rd ties into 17th, yeah.
17th Street's right over here.
All right.
Just off the.
on the ground to absorbing that shock.
143rd is the one that goes to Somerset.
Yes.
And so,
Okay, I'm going the wrong way.
so then 150th is Bloomfield, where that is and where that
Yeah,
comes in.
150th is.
Yeah.
Do we have to give direction or we just say, good job, thanks for the options?
Okay,
I love it.
great segue. Here's the next steps. We need to document the findings, say here, we're done. Then there needs to be some more planning that needs to happen, possibly amend that comprehensive plan. Then lots of collaboration with landowners and industrial development and all that sort of stuff. And then we need to be prepared to do some implementation. There might be some, again, things in the middle. Rarely do these projects progress at a logical rate. Somebody's gonna wanna build something in the middle of the project. And that's the value of this project, is that we're ready to help that decision-making process to fit within the bigger picture.
So document your findings, what's the time frame?
Safe, right?
Pretty.
Safe.
Oh, there you go. I'm sorry,
And the alternatives were presented to council at the study session. Yeah, very, very quickly.
Again, I appreciate the moving to comprehensive plan amendment, but again, I don't want to take a lot of time from Charlie.
Bandwidth, there's only so much bandwidth.
Right, again, I don't want to take time from Charlie's staff right now either.
Any other questions?
Very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Could we get this presentation? It's hard. My eyes aren't that good. So
Yep,
perfect.
we'll get that out. I've got a copy of it, so I'll get it out here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Real quick, is there any way we can get copies of this before these presentations? Cause I can't see half of the stuff on there.
Yeah,
even if I'm
yeah,
looking
it-
over here, so it'd be easier to follow along on our.
We can try to do that. A lot of times, a lot of this stuff's coming together right at the last minute too, so that's why.
I think it,
That sucked right there.
yeah, and it does, cause you get the glare and so.
Right.
I think like what Jackie and I had talked about earlier this year, I don't even think we talked about, it. I think I just sent an email, even if it's just a printed copy on our, cause some of us have really, we got bad eyes, so.
It's really hard.
Like the ones
Over
over
there.
there to the opera.
Yes.
All right, we will move on to our last item on study session. Aaron, how many slides do you have? Do you have 24 too?
We're just gonna go off of the draft policy that was in
Thank you.
the agenda packet. But I do just kind of want to give just some brief overview, just with, with my position being new to the city. Actually, on Friday, I'll be crossing the 9-month mark with the communications manager role being part of the organizational structure of the city of Indianola. So again, I'll always say incredible thanks to past council and current council for establishing this position and prioritizing communication. With Councilmember Armstrong talking about the Catch Des Moines stats from June, I actually did pull fiscal year data year over year for fiscal year 24 for our website and social media, primarily with Facebook. That is our primary driver in the world of social media. And if you compare that to 2023 to today, we've grown our followers by 1,000. We're flirting around the 4,400 mark, 4,500 mark. This is again from July 1 of 2023 to yesterday, June 30th, 2024. Our impressions for our posts have crossed the 1 million mark. That's never before been done. That's an increase of 77.5% from 2023. The engagement rate is up 8.97% from 2.54%. So pretty much everything from the social aspect, elevating and continuing the great work that staff have done collectively prior to the communications manager role. We're still setting that bar, and we're continuing to set that bar. And from the website standpoint, really the website is our official source of any communications for the city of Indianola. Page level views for that is at 516,645 year over year from 2023. That's an increase up from 369,523. So I say all this because we're continuing to see growth. Technologies are changing, communication is happening left and right, and continue to share our story. We're gonna get better at that. We're gonna keep setting the bar. We're gonna keep sharing all aspects about how our community can be engaged, and you as council members, as our elected officials and our appointed officials as well for the draft of this policy, play a big part in that to really help spark engagement and facilitate conversation. Throughout the draft policies, and Mayor Erickson did share your feedback with myself and staff late last week. I do want to come out the gate and just stress that this is in no way, shape, or form meant to be a hindrance to your constitutional rights. Just because you become an elected official or an appointed official, you do not relinquish those rights. So I have to stress that immediately. It's more so of a fact, information sharing, ensuring that we are kind of that cohesive, well-oiled machine as we have all these various components to share our story to best support you, to best support the community. So really this policy helps establish that framework for the communications manager. If it's me or down the road as this role, 50 years, 70 years down the line is still part of the structure, allows them to be able to best support you to meet the needs that you're dealing with, but also for the community. So absolutely need to stress that it is in no way, shape, or form meant to be a hindrance to anyone's constitutional rights. But with that said, I do kind of want to open up the floor for all of you to just have that discussion for that draft policy, your thoughts, and just kind of go from there.
Do you want to kick it off?
Well, as soon as I can find the draft policy.
You guys have a study session?
Well, I know I was, but it's not showing. I'm not looking at
I have a quick comment, like I can talk while they look for the draft policy, so.
It didn't load the first.
Oh, my concerns, Aaron,
Not
is
there.
Christina,
sometimes
show you where.
we're not a well-oiled machine, right? I mean, we have 7 individuals up here who have different beliefs, have different thoughts. And sometimes we're all not gonna agree, right? And when I read through that draft policy, it felt like it was pigeonholing me as far as what I was supposed to think, right? I mean, maybe I don't agree with the direction that the city is heading, or maybe they don't agree with my opinion on a certain subject. But that's kind of a little issue that I had with that draft policy.
I concur. I had that same concern. It felt very like you're only allowed to speak positively in one direction and whatever direction the city is going. And, you know, our purpose as elected officials is to speak up if we don't agree with the forward motion of something. So, to me, that was one of my biggest concerns, is that it took away our ability to speak on those issues.
Sure, yeah, and from our standpoint, my standpoint, city's standpoint, we want to be able to facilitate all those conversations because there's going to be discourse, hopefully civil discourse, where we're not going to all agree. And utilizing your platforms, whatever that looks like, whether it is through social media or any other communication means, it's to have those conversations, right? That's part of the civic engagement process. We've all been part of those hours-long meetings. We're part of one right now, but this is how we become better together to be able to establish those policies to move forward, whether we agree or disagree. And I would encourage you, yeah, if there are any instances of a project or of an update or whatever it looks like, to express your opinions. But and to always source back to credible sources, whether it be the City of Indianola website, our local paper and local radio station, those media affiliates. But even with that too, it is my responsibility as a communication manager to ensure that the fact is present. So even with the sake of that fact correction, I made no mistake as well. If you recall back on the North C Street with the stop signs, I had some incorrect language and immediately was contacted by a member of council and immediately contacted all of you to let you know of the mistake and the actions I would be taking. It's no different of a process from a staff and an elected official standpoint. So that's kind of one bare bone example, but even a long-winded answer of we want to be able to encourage all types of conversation. And we never delete comments because we disagree with them. As long as it meets the standards of a communications policy or topic guidelines that we establish, or furthermore, if we're talking for the sake of individual social networks, they all have community standards and policies when you establish that account or a group that need to be met. So we treat this no different than technology policies for the sake of spam or identifying personal confidential information or vulgar attacks. That's the intent for it.
So, oh, okay. So actually this is up, and this is also one that is under definitions, under personal gain or influence. The use of one's position or knowledge gained from the position to advance personal interest, political campaigns other than those specifically related to their re-election for their same role, or to exert influence or against specific projects or policies for personal advantage. And then it's right there under the prohibition. Okay, so I'm running for supervisor. It's a different position than what I'm currently elected for. And of course, I'm gonna use my social media page, and I'm gonna use my mayor page too to convey that information. So that right there says that I can't though.
I think, and I'll defer to legal counsel on this, but my own interpretation, the way that if I were to go through, I want to make sure I also don't give any professional advice for the sake of that kind of.
Yeah, because I'm gonna use my social
campaign,
media, and
but-
if you wanna censor me, go ahead, but I'm gonna use my social media because that's how I won the last campaign.
Yeah.
Was through it. I mean, it's a different crew, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes back to probably the root of the creation of the count. So the intent of your mayor account was for the office of mayor. So when you.
It's actually city council.
Or for city council,
And
sure.
actually IMU, it's been a process, this page.
So it always probably comes back to intent, and this is where I'm probably gonna defer to legal counsel on that aspect.
Right, so one of the cases that was asked for legal counsel to review was the Linkey versus Freed case. So in Linkey versus Freed, the question became, was the censorship based, was the employee doing it on an official state action type page, right? Versus personal. So if you want to post
On my personal
in
mayor
your personal
page.
we can't stop that. Okay, you are free to post whatever you want on your personal page. That is your First Amendment right, as long as your personal page. So the issue, especially in Lincoln, is that a lot of times we overlap, right? You have your personal social media, which happens to mention all the stuff that you do in an official capacity as well. And we're not very good about saying, okay, this is my site. Nothing herein is intended to, nor does it act as, you know, an official position of the city of Indianola.
Well, I do have a mayor page though, that I use, so I don't use my personal Facebook page for city business.
Right.
But I do have a mayor Facebook page that I use to
So-
convey information out.
So your mayor page would probably be considered to be an official site that is a state action, right? So when you start censoring things on that page, like if people come in and say something, make comments, and we start censoring
Oh,
those
sure,
comments,
Billy, yeah, I don't
Right.
delete any of
then we start to have some First Amendment issues. But you also have the fact that if it's an official site, this city can be held liable for what you say or what you do in your official capacity, right? And so the reason they have guidelines is because we're like, okay, we really don't want to be sued for you saying something libelous, or vulgar, or,
Any
you know.
defamation or
Right.
anything
Yeah,
that's.
but it comes more to the whole reelection thing. So what I'm saying here is, so you're telling me the personal mayor page I set up that is attached to my personal Facebook page, I can't campaign for my supervisor role? Because I'm going to.
I mean, so
Cause I'm just telling you, I have a lot of followers on that page and it is a source of information. So usually what I do is I will share it on the mayor page and then I will take it and share it to my personal page.
right, so campaign laws are like going to be separately what you can and cannot do.
But this is saying I can.
This is saying she
Right.
can.
That was not what we were specifically asked to look at. So whether or not for personal gain, you can use it since it's not run by the city at all.
No one has it. It's tied to my personal
I think what's
Facebook
confusing
page.
here is many cities might have a mayor page. Where
Right.
you are representing the mayor as a city.
Yeah.
And what you've set up is more of a mayor, running mayor for.
Yeah, it was what I was running.
So
Because
it's
it
a
was something you set up
campaign
as a campaign,
And I think as long as you identify that it is
not city.
not a official city
Well, it says
site.
that in the bio, that these are my personal views that don't
Right.
reflect.
I hesitate to say that we would be able to govern what you do on a personal social media site, as long as it is made very clear that this is not an official city site, nor are the opinions set forth in here those of the city. Because what we want to do is protect the city from any potential action based on what you're doing on your personal sites, which is why the city governs pretty heavily what comes in through and out through its social media and its websites, right? Because we're constantly having to consider, are we going to be sued for this? So as long as you are dividing that up, I would hesitate to say that we should govern what people are saying on their social media site. The Linke case is interesting because it wasn't clear whether or not that Facebook page was official or personal. So when you have a mixed use, there becomes this huge analysis of, could he on his personal Facebook page, when he posts about his position with the state, could he block users, right? And so from commenting, and I think the answer to us out of this case is the more you guys keep them separate and designate fully that this is just my personal opinion, my personal site, the better off we are.
So if I understand you correctly, if we had set up a mayor's page on the city Facebook side, then that requires more scrutiny
Correct.
than if she sets that up on her personal account, which you can do obviously in Facebook, and set up your own personal account and then set up your own personal campaign account. And I don't know, does yours say Stephanie Erickson for mayor, or does it say mayor Erickson?
It says mayor, but it does say in my bio that these are my personal
I mean,
views and not
But
those
mayor,
of,
I would say as mayor page would stick with the city from mayor to mayor to mayor.
yeah, and this one does it,
Yours
yeah.
is a personal stuff like the mayor. or
That's where I was
something
at,
like
yes.
and I just think from a liability standpoint, the more you can make clear on your page that it is not
Official.
an official city sponsored site, the better off the city is liability wise.
There's some good verbiage for all of us to add on our city council pages, is that these are, you know, not officially ran by the city.
Right, well, because I think you're absolutely right. As members of the council, you have every right to have your own opinions on even what the city is doing. It's just that the city doesn't want to be held liable, quite frankly, for your opinion. So,
I agree, I don't think.
you know.
we're-
Well, and I think it goes to the topic too, like for all this, and I read all this, and I guess I interpreted it much differently, that the whole thing is just saying that we need to be professional and make distinctions between personal and official positions the whole way through. So even when interacting, hey, it's very well known if you're a dissenting vote on something, right? That's public record. It's okay to share that on your page. Hey, I didn't agree with this and this is what it is. You know, the issue that I have at times is that it's unclear when things are communicated, whether it's official policy or it's personal opinion. I think just holding us all and encouraging us all to be a little more thoughtful and just, again, even, you already have a disclaimer on your page, you're golden.
Well, and like I
think I'm
the
gonna-
very first thing in the purpose of the policy is the official use of social media by elected and appointed officials. So like, I think that right there sets out what the city is trying to do. It's the official use of social media. And so we just want to be very clear where we're walking that line of this is the official use of social media by the city and versus this is unofficial use of social media.
I think it's a good segue to what I was gonna talk about is, you know, appreciate, you know, our intent isn't to do this, our intent isn't to do that. You're not gonna be here forever, and it's not gonna be here forever. we're not gonna be here forever.
No.
Well, I mean, at some point, I'm gonna get older and, you know, retire and. The OG,
Alright, play the old guy.
the OG Steve, that's the original Steve. But, so that's great, but when you move on, that moves on. Whoever comes in might go, I've got this policy here that I'm gonna use to control what all of you say. So Steve Armstrong, you voted against the budget and you're out there saying, I think that's a negative view against the city and not positive. You need to shut that down, cause that can happen. And that's one of my biggest fears is people come and people go and somebody can look at this and go like, Ray interpreted it differently than how other people interpreted that section. So, you know, if that interpretation is interpreted differently by somebody else, well. Can you say that about every single policy or thing we do then? That if we take the negative view on it, that when Ben's not here, I mean, listen, Charlie's leaving, we could just, the whole code book's about to get thrown out, right? Cause we've got someone new coming
It's like, I
in,
don't
there's
care,
still,
go for it.
there's still checks and balances that come into all that, right? As to what can or can't be done. And again, at the end of the day, there's 6 people that have votes that matter that are voting to accept and adopt this, if I'm right, if I'm following that. And so unless we vote in 6 power hungry maniacs that wanna control everybody, like we still have the opportunity for discussion like this for all policies, not just one on social media.
Which are not set in stone forever, which can change. And when you go back to the language, it is official. So that makes it versus it very clear.
That does change things since I'm understanding this now, reading official in front of all of those.
All over it.
So yeah, you're talking about the official pages,
But
not our.
it's not in the definitions section. I am looking at it right now and it just says in section A, official capacity, use of a social media by council and board members for disseminating information related to city activities, initiatives, or events and for gathering public. And it goes on to B.
Yeah, but it says it has a representative city of Indianola, that's.
Right,
But
but on B, it says personal gain or influence, the use of one's position or knowledge gained from that position to advance personal interests, political campaigns, other than those specifically related to reelection, or to exert influence for or against specific projects or policies for personal advantage. I get that it says for personal advantage, but what defines personal advantage? On my city council page, I shared a thing about stop the backlog for rape kits. So because I'm a woman or someone who may have experienced something like that in her past, is that then my personal advantage if I get that to push forward? So what defines what personal advantage is?
Yeah, so we can.
Reasonable expectation would be, did it bring you financial gain? Did
Then
bring
it should
you-
say that it doesn't bring financial gain, not personal advantage.
I don't know if that's saying personal advantage or just your opinion. You're on your own page on that. I don't think that's.
I'll save us some time and I'll just say I wouldn't want to entertain a policy like it at all.
So
I'll say it.
before you close off on that, almost every, I think almost literally every city has some protectionary measure of some kind to guide the council and its appointed officials, because this doesn't just apply to you, it applies to me, it applies to Chief Scheer. And what if Chief Scheer is saying something with his uniform on? How does that change what he's saying from a personal point of view to now I'm given the appearance that I am representing the city? Now, I don't wear a uniform or whatnot, but I think that there's really clear expectation that we as elected and appointed officials are held to a higher standard. The perception is we are always 24/7 representing the city. And unless you clearly say in your post, hey, this is not the opinion of the full council, but my personal opinion is this, and on my personal page, it just clearly defines, it just clearly establishes that. But if I go out there touting something about any one of my elected officials or a city project or something like that, I'm the city manager. I am held to a higher standard of professional ethics, and you need to hold me accountable. You need a policy in place to be able to do that. Otherwise, we're all wild west.
Where did this even come from? No, like us even doing this, where'd the directive come from? Like, we wanna talk about wasting time, right? And wasting staff's time, where'd this come from?
I asked for it over 6 months ago.
It doesn't say, I've been up here for 6 months, I didn't hear us give a directive. And so that's just a frustrating.
Over 6 months ago, if we had a policy like this in place, knowing that most cities and institutions do, and wanting to understand what it was, if we had it, we didn't have it. What would it be like to create something like this for us as a city? And Christina, I think, like, to your point, if there's some verbiage in here that you're uncomfortable with, like, let's figure out how to fix it so it's more clear. As opposed
Send me
to,
the verbiage.
as opposed to just,
Well, like, I'm not the legal
well, no, but I mean.
mind behind it, but I get what you're
That's how all
saying.
policy and code
but-
works, right? We have questions we don't understand. We say, hey, staff, we're not comfortable with this. We don't see, like, help guide us in that way. And so if you go back up to the part where you're uncomfortable with.
Or maybe all the way through, you keep adding the word official one.
Yeah.
You know, that's one thing that might, non-personal.
And that's a good call out, cause like I read it in the first part and I'm like, in my brain as I read it, it's like official capacity, but that doesn't mean everyone's gonna read it that way.
Right.
And so like, I think it would be, very interesting rather than just broadly saying, no, we never want to have a policy, to actually work to craft one that is useful for staff and for elected officials.
Well, if I'm hearing legal counsel correctly on this, it also provides us some measure of protection for liability. If I'm not mistaken, and our job as a city official is to provide protections against legal recourse.
What was that case that you referenced?
Yeah, so it is,
Sorry, I'm gonna read that to them. I just
Yeah,
like to read
not a
cases
problem.
like that.
it's not completely on point, and we
Like
could
that.
probably look into it further for additional stuff. But it is Linkey versus Freed, and it's actually, it's a very new case that came down from the Supreme Court, so 601 US 187. since I'm here in my official capacity, I'll
deleting
make no
is-
comments about the Supreme Court. So I mean, and it really is in today's day and age where we kind of commingle our professional and our personal lives, especially on social media. Just a reminder that the city could be on the hook for some of the things you say out there in the public. And how do we insulate the city from those types of things? And in this case, this gentleman was commenting on his posts, and they weren't very nice comments. It was his personal Facebook page, but it didn't necessarily say, this is my personal Facebook page. It didn't say, this is my official Facebook page. It just was his page. And he deleted a few of the comments, and then he blocked the gentleman entirely. And Facebook's block mechanism essentially means you don't get to comment or do it. So like, had the gentleman made a very official statement post on his Facebook page, like if he was sitting there and I think he was a city manager or a state manager, and had he said, in my official capacity under code section XYZ, we are hereby doing XYZ. And the fact that that person could not comment on there, the court essentially suggested that may be a violation of that citizen's First Amendment right. Because that would have been an official comment in his official capacity, and by preventing them from being able to comment on that, it could have been a violation of their First Amendment right, which would have been held, in this case, the state as opposed to the city liable. So, I mean, it's those kinds of things where we're really in a new world of, you know, I mean, to some extent I have it easy. No one really cares what I post. So like, you know, but people watch what you guys say and what you do. And then they comment on those things. And you can think, oh, this is my personal Facebook page. I'm going to block this user. And you might walk the city into a lawsuit.
If I may too, I mean, 9 months now at the city, but having 10, 12 years professional in communication, I did start my career in journalism as a reporter. It was really tough. I did utilize the same personal account that I have today. That's why you see that blue verified check mark. I can't get rid of that unless I change. Unless I actually
just thought you were
unless
like
I can't
really
delete my
popular.
account. No, I don't subscribe to Meta Blue or whatever it's called. That was back when I was a reporter, and I utilized that page for both personal and professional purposes for sharing of stories and interacting with sources. And as I left journalism and pursued different careers, it was tough to even reestablish a separation of both personal and professional, because at the time you're a journalist and you want to get, engagement, just like what we're trying to do here. We're sparking engagement. We're all trying to, all these brands, we're all personal brands, we're all professional brands. We're fighting for attention on these devices in print. And it became incredibly tough to try to separate that and delineate between the two. So again, as much as we talk about the lawsuits and protections, it really is a support. It's a support to allow the communications manager to best support council, elected officials, appointed officials, to put our best foot forward for the city. I would be doing a disservice, the communications manager and staff being a disservice if we had any other personal vendettas or agendas to silence anybody, or to if we come in different opinions. That doesn't solve anything. So hear me when I say that this very much is a collaborative venture. Well, we're fine. I appreciate everyone's comments and that feedback that was addressed, and continue to share those, and we'll refine this, and we will keep charting ahead.
So what's the enforceability? Like who is the one to enforce?
So it really would come with the communications manager to provide, whether you want to call it enforcement, but just kind of like that extra layer of eyes to then provide any training or coaching. Think of it as like with Indianola University, we went through the very high level overview with legal counsel and Ben at the start when we had our new council members come on board. This would be an additional workshop just to continue to coach the reminders and the best practices, do's and don'ts, if you will. But it wouldn't, probably in the absolute worst case scenario, would never come into any.
Fines and censures in here.
So there are no fines. There are no fines whatsoever. The
You
censures.
could get a fine. I mean, if we censured, if we because the council censured another council member, they voted in favor of that. Doesn't that go to state ethics and then ethics could give like a $25 fine? I don't think anybody pays their ethics violations. I would if I had one, but I don't have one. I just wanna make that clear.
So that's where with the state ethics board, but there's no call out of fines within our policy, but that would be out of,
Censure
that's out of
reprimand.
city.
You govern yourself in that regard. You are the body that is holding yourselves accountable.
I mean, very similar to like staff making a recommendation and then the council voting. That's how I read into your policy. Maybe it's a little bit vague. I will say what happens if you do this is a bit vague in the policy. But which might be good for you because it means we may or may not ever do anything. So.
Because good policy would be enforceability, right?
I would say it's more aspirational and coaching. It is working together. And if there's an issue that for which you are passionate, you can bring yourselves to accountability, but I prefer you.
With the policies I did review from other
I'm more
cities.
for that, like, help us out, move along in a positive manner, and same for committees and commissions, like, this applies to them too.
And I mean, it does say it's a may result in censure, reprimand, or other appropriate action. I mean, but that's up for you guys to determine. It says the council's the one that's gonna determine that. And you may decide that you never wanna reprimand, censure, or, I mean.
And that's where I think even too with the involvement of the communication manager, the city manager could help remove any biases or to remove any type of agendas, we'll call it, because again, it'd be a disservice for me to prevent any of you from those rights. You're the governing body, you decide what that best preventive act measure could be. But again, it's all coaching. Everything that we do would be coaching.
So one other thing that I have a concern on, and it kind of goes back to, it's almost the opposite of what I was saying about being able to share personally, but it's in the official capacity. On page 2, B1. So it says that when using social media in their official capacities, elected and appointed officials should focus on sharing information pertinent to their roles, such as City of Indianola initiatives, policy discussions, public events, community celebrations, solicitations of public feedback on municipal matters, among other topics. So I guess my concern would be then, if I want to use my official capacity to garner support in legislation on stop the backlog, am I then going to be limited because it says that I should only be sharing information that's pertinent to my current role?
Yes, I would say are you talking about a state legislative change?
Yes.
I don't think you should, and this is my personal right now talking, Ben Reeves, not city manager. I don't think you should, in your official capacity, represent that the city of Indianola is supportive of any state legislative changes. Because you're acting in your official capacity as a representative of the council. You, Christina, each should be able to say anything you want about that legislative issue on your personal page. But it would be disingenuous of you to say the city of Indianola is for or against this legislation.
No, but I should be able to say, I, as a council person for the city, in the city of Indianola, not for, but in the city of Indianola, feel that this is legislation that should be reviewed. I'm not saying that I'm representing the
You
entire
have 7 other elected leaders that may disagree with you. And
Right.
so if the city of Indianola is taking a position, the council should take a vote and then make a city designated push or whatever it may decide to do. But what if you're the one out of the 7 that doesn't want something and the rest does? You can't represent that the city is for something when in fact they aren't.
Right, but as long as I'm not saying I represent the city as a whole.
If you were to have a disclaimer, that would probably be the only, I'm not even call it a workaround, but a solution to that. Would I be correct with having that disclaimer?
So if what I hear you saying is that you wanna be able to, like, if I wanna go on my social media page and say Allison Stoiderman, attorney at law for a Gentry law firm. This is my opinion, right? You wanna be able to say Christina Beach, council person, city of Indianola, this is my opinion, right? So I think, in fact, I know our law firm would require me to put that this is my opinion and this is my title, this is my opinion, but I do not represent, it may not represent the opinion of Brick Gentry Law Firm, right? But I can tell anyone I want what my position is, right?
Right.
So if you wanna say this is your position, as long as you have a disclaimer in there that says, this is not the position of the city council as a whole or the city of Indianola, this is my position, but this happens to be my title. That's facts, right?
Right.
Like,
That's why I
mean,
just wanna make sure that this, because according to this policy, it would really limit me from being able to even do that disclaimer.
I don't think that, but
I just don't like how vague
I think
a
what
lot
we
of
need to
this
do is
is.
probably better define official capacity.
Right.
Because the fact that you are a council person does not, and you say that you're a council person, doesn't necessarily mean you're acting in your
Right.
official capacity. You can have a role and a title without acting in your official capacity. So perhaps what it sounds to me like council is asking is that we go in and better define what official capacity means
Totally
within
agree.
this policy. And perhaps that will take care of a lot of what I hear the issues being. And I guess from a legal standpoint, maybe we add into the idea of disclaimers in personal
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
posts.
I just want to say, I think this is a good example, in my opinion, of if you have issues with this policy, talk about it now, because this is, you know, you're coming to some solutions and we're figuring it out, we're compromising on these things and we can get it figured out. But
We should have voted on it 2 weeks ago.
Well,
can I finish? My point is that we have a fundamental position here, in my opinion, to maintain the fiscal responsibilities of NOLA and not put ourselves liable for lawsuits. We're coming to some consensus, I think.
I'm still in that, I don't want to even see it.
Okay, while we're defining things, can we also please define the personal gain or personal ambition, you know, that section as well?
Sure.
And then Ron.
Just while you're on that for 1 second, because I'm hearing what you're saying, is it kind of like, if it's something we would recuse ourselves for, that would be something that you wouldn't be doing on social media, right? Is that kind of like the bar? You just have to define better, or is it?
I wouldn't think that the state has already defined what personal gain is in state legislation. You know, is it a personal gain if the Republicans win or the Democrats win? Maybe it's my personal gain, I'm wonderful, but that's not my personal gain. My personal gain is if I have some kind of interest, and I think the state's already defined what. that
Right,
is.
but
Maybe
we're
my
using
property's gonna go up
wordage
in value because I just
personal
grew.
advantage, not personal gain, so.
you added influence, yeah, I mean.
More clearly define that.
Yeah, I mean,
This is good
we're
for-
not using state defined wordage, you know, I feel like we need to define. Because, you know, somebody may say, well, that was an advantage to you, or randomness.
The state's already done it. It's good. Right there.
Would you mind typing those up and sending all those suggestions to Aaron? Those ones that you have.
We've also got notes as well, so.
Unless you got it,
Yeah,
okay,
we're good.
never mind, you got it.
Can I ask a question on B2? So it says that, help prevent errors and liability issues, city manager with support communications manager, communications team members, or department designee will provide officials with official city documents rather than having officials summarize. So to me, that's saying that we cannot post anything without receiving it from you or a department designee.
So I want to say that it's to help prevent those errors and liability issues. So the best way I can kind of explain that is if I put in that journalist hat on, if I were to be approached by a member that's in my role, and again, I'm a reporter, and they tell me that I have infactual information, pretty much through that transparency process, it's then to get that information corrected immediately and accurately, and then have that editors know. This helps prevent us, again, if we're all together as a city of Indianola, you can quickly diminish credibility in a hurry. So this helps build and continue to build our credibility, build our trust, and also should be directing back to official city documents information that is housed, lives on official city communications like the City of Indianola website. So we're not necessarily potentially creating things out of scratch, we're just ensuring that you have the information that you need, that we have provided and it's publicly available to then share that with the community, whatever the medium on social, for instance, would be. So we've done a couple of other practices where we've done this in the past, just to make sure that you have the information you need to best share facts and communicate that out.
I think the
So-
flock cameras is probably an excellent example of when you gave us great communication. And there was a lot of conversation online and I took all your great wording and I took out what wasn't supposed to be shared like the stuff that was internal. And I put that online and the conversation just stopped because people got the like explanation of what these crazy cameras are here for. And so that was really helpful and that you gave us that information. And I don't think that they're asking us for every small little thing, Aaron has to write our words, but on some of those bigger topics, like some of these bigger developments, maybe it is nice to have talking points. When we're talking about flock cameras or, I don't know, any other major big thing we have come up.
Issue with people calling out PD pulling someone over north of town, and there was a lot of comments
Yeah.
from a lot of different people. But then as soon as we had the official statement released, you can just say, hey, PD did a great job,
Right.
here's the story.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
ton of great
perfect.
Totally get that.
examples across the board from staff, not just me, it's from all of us.
I guess where I'm going is when we have posts out there with misinformation and a lot of times I'll just jump in there and put a post, a link to the city website.
I think that's okay.
I don't,
Yep, yeah.
I think that's exactly what they want you to do.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just clarifying that
Yep.
that's still okay.
Yeah, and I will stress too, I should say this at the top, you guys are all doing a phenomenal job. So even though we're having this great discussion, what we've been doing, what you are doing, you are all doing top-notch work.
Aaron, I
So-
think you're lying, cause I've never made one post about.
Hey, that's just you. You choose not to be,
Social media.
you choose not to be active.
Everyone's saying.
Thanks for not getting us to cash. It's gonna be me.
I'll bring it back
I'll be
to
there.
Ron's original
I try to stay off social.
statement about, tying up what we are allowed to say.
Even if I was on there,
So-
Jeff would still forgive me.
If we are receiving information from you that is talking about specific topics, I would just ask that any information not be slanted one way or another if we're expected to share it, because we should be able to, along with sharing the factual information, post our opinions on that subject and not have them conflict each other. If that makes sense.
Hopefully for what you've received from me, just since we're on the record, recordings and stuff, that hasn't been the case in my 9 months with the city.
Not that I'm aware of. I
You're
just wanna
pretty
make sure,
phenomenal.
like,
What you'll see from the staff.
because your,
100% every
your
time.
interpretation of how, this is done, like, I mean, Steve did make a good point. How you interpret this right now may not be how somebody, say you retire, 20 years from now, may not be the same way that that is interpreted then, and be a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, and that's why it's
you know?
living, breathing these social networks. I mean, it seems like a new one pops
Right.
every year. So even though we're talking primarily with Facebook, I mean, there's also integrations to talk about with Instagram, Twitter, now X, Snapchat, YouTube, Nextdoor, I mean, the whole works. I mean, it's a wild, wild west, as Ben referred to earlier, so.
And Christina, that's my concern, is handcuffing potential future council members with new leadership who interprets it completely different and controls a message of certain individuals.
But that's
Down
the
the road.
road. That's the role of the council, Steve, is to make sure that whoever is in that leadership position to make
You
sure
are
that.
the
That's right. Yeah, we are the ones that are making.
Now,
No, in this policy, and you can change the policy anytime. You are the governing authority always.
right, but look at the process that it takes to change. I mean, we may be setting the policy, but it is also a lengthy transaction to change that policy.
I think it's
in the
also,
future.
I don't mean to cut you off, Christina. I think it's also just a learning curve as well, because again, we are 9 months with my role, communication manager, being and part of the city organizational structure. So there's even further steps with this framework in addition to the employee communication policies that were passed 2 weeks ago. As we take that next step as a brand and as an organization, for instance, the City of Indianola logo desperately in need of a brand refresh and rejuvenation, not for the sake of we've seen it all the time, but it's 12, 15 years on its life cycle. And so the way that in my role as a communications professional, it goes deeper as a brand workshop of brand voice, brand personality, style guide, the whole works. So that really takes your visioning and the community's visioning to take that next step further. And really what drives us through it all will be those strategic priorities that are posted to our left and available on the website. So that really is the driver into all this framework of what I am doing, what we are doing together.
And I think a good point that it was just made was, this is a policy, this is not a law. And you are the policy setter. You are the ones that set the tone for all of us. And if the council evolves, you can't hold a future council. Maybe a future council wants to change that standard, but you hold yourselves accountable, and that's good. That's a positive thing. So
4 years, it can take 4 years for a council to change a policy. Because you would have to get all of the seats. So it wouldn't be a quick process. As Christina said, it would not be a quick process. I mean, we know where I stand, so we don't need to, beat the dead horse on it. I don't wanna do it.
Hungry.
I don't wanna do it. So.
I have another question. We've called this specifically a social media policy. However, I've just noticed a lot of comments being made on online newspapers such as The Advocate. So I'm wondering if that should be included in this.
What do you mean by comments?
Well, they have a forum on there where you can make comments to articles. And I know Steve is one that writes for them. But anytime something is posted.
Now that won't affect you writing for them, will it?
No, because all the stuff I write is.
There's no financial gain.
It's nothing, he doesn't
No
write
financial
anything
gain,
that's
right?
related to
No, you mean the
this,
comments. So I think.
but anytime an article is posted,
I don't know what all you write on.
related to
Never write on.
council.
I never thought about that.
There's a forum that's open,
It's
Yeah.
always your personal.
and any of us could
He
respond
points
to
it out over there, yes.
Yeah, so I would say.
Okay, we're losing the group, guys. Let's focus back on Aaron.
I would say to probably best answer your question, Councilmember Sones, is because it's a third party, it's outside of city, it's not an official, albeit it's a legitimate, credible source of news sharing and information. That's dialogue that's happening between users on that platform. It's not necessarily an official city communication, so I can't necessarily govern any of that. It's just to then be part of the discussion. So that would be probably a deeper discussion, whether it be if you as council members want to engage and share the facts on that platform, but just know that it is outside of a city official communication tool. It's a great partner and a great resource, but it's not what we operate and what we kind of own the management side and the process side of things.
So in response to that, and the question was a good question. So if I do comment on a particular article.
I wasn't talking about you commenting on an article, but any one of us could comment on it.
But I always sign, it's Steve Richardson. I don't say city council. I don't say anything along that. It's just Steve Richardson and that's the way that it's been done. And as far as, and it was a good question about the column itself. Amy, when I was running for office and actually filed papers, then we no longer had that column until after it was over. And all the things I write in the column are all personal things that have happened to me in my lifetime. It's very, very, can't remember ever putting anything political in there, buddy.
No, I think maybe you missed what I said. We have articles that run in the paper about things that we've discussed. We don't publish them, Amy does, about things we've discussed, and there's an open forum in there. And any one of us could respond to those.
I don't respond to those open forums, but you could, you could if you wanted.
And we would want to make sure that we don't have quorum in there, as you pointed out, which is always important.
Ron, were any of your issues addressed that you had concerns with originally?
The whole official capacity is what I was concerned about, so, yeah, if we define it, And like I say, I'm not a user of social media, but I respect your guys who do use it for certain platforms. I think it's the devil's tool, but.
It's the devil's tool.
No post.
I saw Amy typing that up over there.
I guess he's not gonna be reading your article on Facebook today, Amy, because it's the devil. But I'll read it twice.
Just to even close that, not to be the dead horse even further, but even with that data I shared with you earlier, we're gonna continue to grow and that engagement, whatever that conversation is online, it's gonna continue to go up. So social media, while it could be perceived as that by some, it really is a valuable two-way communication tool. So with these policies and through these continued discussions, we'll continue to put our best foot forward for the community and how they can be engaged with the city.
Can we, before it comes back for a vote, get a revised version to make sure there's nothing else?
Red lines and everything.
Just because I don't wanna see it go and then get pulled again and then we're.
For sure.
Perfect.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, that's all we have for tonight. Thank you, Aaron,
Director Vogt.
so much.